Make life happen. Ooh, even on the rainiest, loneliest, coldest day, or without a penny to your name. Make life happen. December 2020, Episode 1 of the MLH Podcast. Welcome, Life Makers. You may wonder who I am and you may wonder what this podcast is all about. So let me give you an introduction. My name is Faisal. I go by Fizz because I'm bubbly like sparkling champagne. I'm 35 years old. This is something that I've probably wanted to do for roughly 10 years. It's not that I haven't gotten around to doing it. It's that I was trying to piece together the framework in my mind. And I felt that now was high time for me to embark on this journey. And this isn't my podcast because there's no I in team. This is our journey and this is our podcast. And we are the life makers. So what is a life maker? A life maker embodies and embraces certain values, and some of these include positivity and community and passion, just to name a few. When I think of life makers and when I think of make life happen, the idea really stems from a desire or a need to not simply accept what happens to you more often than not in life. Certain circumstances, you're not happy with your job, you're not happy in your marriage, you're not happy with your weight, and you feel oftentimes in life that life is something that happens to you, and sometimes you'll be disgruntled and upset and frustrated and anxious and you'll clench your fists and you'll look up at the heavens and you'll say, why does this always happen to me? My message to all life makers is that life does not necessarily have to be something that happens to you. My message to you is you can make life happen by believing firmly and resolutely and resoundingly that you do have a say in that matter. And that all begins with your frame of mind. That all begins with your positive attitude. But not to sound like a quack or sell you hopes and dreams and smoke and mirrors and drugstore psychology talk. The framework and the structure for the Make Life Happen podcast, which is going to be a roughly 2.5 hours, sometimes 3-hour podcast, is interacting with real people just like you and me. And I'm not a messiah. I'm not a preacher. I don't think that I'm special or unique in any way, shape, or form. I'm just like you. And I believe that the MLH podcast can be a vessel for positivity, a vessel for building a community of life makers, like-minded individuals of all ages and races and ethnicities, and profiles and income brackets, and just listening to one another and feeling like we're part of a community that supports one another and that cares about one another and that loves one another. So that's what Make Life Happen essentially is, and that's what it means to be a life maker. And in this podcast, we're going to have a talent in the first part, and there's also going to be interaction with the community. So if you have an inspirational quote that you'd like to share, a movie that you watched that touched you a certain way, or a song, or a video, or a photo, there's going to be all kinds of opportunities to interact and to engage and to communicate with myself and with anyone else amongst the life makers through basically all of the main platforms on social media in both audio and video formats. So Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter. We're going to have a dedicated Gmail account. We're going to have a dedicated website as well. And we are going to have a dedicated number. So you can shoot us a text, you can call us, you can email us, you can DM us. We want you to interact as much as possible, and we're going to highlight you on the podcast. To start with, it's going to be a monthly podcast, but depending on, momentum and other factors, we may increase the periodicity or the frequency of this podcast to a weekly podcast, a bi-monthly podcast. It really all depends on how far along we go. But I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful, and I'm super excited about this project. It's 2020. We've gone through a lot of rough patches and struggles and difficulties in each of our lives, financial, emotional, in terms of our health, in terms of our well-being. And I really feel that it's one of the things that we've lost in 2020 is the aspect of listening to one another, and the aspect or the concept of community. So that's what I'm trying to get back. This is not a monologue. This is a dialogue. This isn't an I or a my thing. This is a we thing and an our thing. And the only way this podcast can ever hope to succeed or achieve its mission and vision is by us interacting with one another and working together as one team. So we've spoken about the first part of the podcast. The second part of the podcast is going to be an interview, essentially, with someone who is going through something, financial hardship, a divorce, lost their job, they're going through depression or anxiety or what have you, and we're just going to listen to that person, and that person is going to be a life maker, and that person is going to be part of our community, and we're going to show that person all the love and respect and appreciation and support that they are truly deserving of. I don't really care where you're from. I don't care how old you are, how much money you make, or what your surname is. If you have an interesting story, a fascinating story, which highlights a certain struggle that you've either overcome or you're going through right now, if you really just want to be heard, and you really just want to be listened to, and you really just want to vent and share, if this is therapy for you, then it's therapy for us. Oftentimes you'll hear someone say, man, you're not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist. You're not a medical doctor. You're not a healthcare professional. You're not a social worker. You have no unique skill set, and you're not positioned in any particular way to answer my questions or help me with what I'm going through. That's true, and that's why community is one of the core values of the Make Life Happen podcast, because someone out there is definitely a lot smarter than I am and a lot more suited and positioned to extend that helping hand or just listen to you or offer you some advice. So consider this a place where you can come and where you can just speak freely and share, and we will find someone who can help you, and we will find the resources that can put a smile on your face and restore your faith in the world around you and the reality in which you live. Also, a different aspect of this podcast is certainly going to be philanthropy and helping those in need, particularly those impoverished, and just giving back to our community, whether it's hospitals or schools, certain families who can't pay their grocery bill or their electricity bill. We are going to do everything in our power, and that's why it's very important. It's very important that MLH remains, no matter how big this podcast gets or how many subs or likes or what have you. all those metrics and all those analytics, every single, and uh, that is my promise to you. That is um, that is the mandate to which I shall hold myself accountable. Every single penny, every single penny that MLH makes will go right back to the community through charitable donations, through certain projects that will inject positivity and faith um, in the community where it is most needed. And I rely on you in this regard as well. So we have a lot of exciting projects in the pipeline. We're going to be meeting a lot of cool, interesting people. And if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, if you would like to share your story, please, please, please reach out to us, call us, email us, DM us, whatever platform you feel most comfortable with. And we will certainly, with pleasure, and it would be our honor, in fact, to interact with you and engage with you and listen to you. In terms of the language of this podcast, it's going to be in English for the most part because we're trying to reach an international, global audience. We're not particularly fond of tribalism and staying within the pigeonhole. We want as many people from as many different walks of life to feel comfortable here, and to feel comfortable sharing and interacting with the life makers and with MLH. So it is going to be in English. However, if one of our guests, our talents, or one of our guests with an inspirational, motivational story would like to be a guest on the show, and they happen to be Arabic speaking, then that interview would be in Arabic. أنا أتكلم عربي واللغة العربية هي لغة الأم، فبطبيعة الحال يشرفني ذلك. شرف كبير لي أني أتكلم مع أي شخص ذكر أو أنثى، بغض النظر إيش العمر، بغض النظر هم من فين أو إيش ظروف حياتهم. لو هم مش موجودين في المملكة العربية السعودية، لو هم ما يفضلوا أنه يكون التواصل معهم هنا في الاستوديو، فممكن أنه نجري معهم المقابلة عن طريق سكايب أو زوم أو أحد الوسائل الأخرى. ما عندنا أي مشكلة من الناحية هذه، بس إحنا نبغى نسمع صوتكم ونبغى نتشرف بوجودكم معنا. وهذا بالنسبة للجزء الثاني من البودكاست. بالنسبة للجزء الأول، أي واحد يعزف عود، يغني، يلقي شعر، أي واحد عنده مهارة وحاب أنه يشاركها معنا وحاب أنه يكون من صناع الحياة، إحنا نتشرف بوجوده معنا، وحنسوي كل شيء في قدرتنا أنه نسلط الضوء عليه. الرسالة هي هذا ليس بودكاست، البودكاست هذا ليس ملك لي، أنا لا أملك هذا البودكاست. لا توجد ملكية معينة لهذا البودكاست. هذا البودكاست للجمهور. أنتم يا صناع الحياة تتحكمون وتتخذون القرارات، أنتم تحددون الوجهة. فرجاء تواصلوا معنا، كلنا أذان صاغية ونتشرف بوجودكم معنا. So with that being said, we have a lot of exciting projects in the pipeline, and there's a lot more to be said. In future episodes of the podcast, we'll be getting into the mission and the vision and the values, and some of the exciting ideas that we hope to share with you. Please pay attention to the description of this video, because that's where we're going to share all of the hashtags, the links to all of our social media accounts. We want you to follow us. We want you to interact with us, and we're going to make sure we make it super easy for you to do so. If you have any questions for me personally, please feel free to ask those questions as well, and we may do a Q&A session. It's December 2020. Episode 1 of the podcast will highlight a very special talent. He's a sax player. His name is Mahmoud Lashin, and he's actually an Egyptian who moved to Saudi Arabia roughly 10 years ago, and he learned how to play sax right here in Saudi. So we're super excited and we're super stoked to have him here, and he's going to play live in studio. We're super stoked about that, and we're going to link all his social media accounts in the description. And for our inspirational guest in the second part of the podcast, we're going to have a very, very special guest. Her name is Maria. She's Spanish. She lives in Spain. I've known her for roughly 3 years, and we lived together in Germany for a while. We were in the same language school. We were learning German. So ich kann auch Deutsch, wenn Sie möchten. Also, so she's going to be our guest. She's one of the most fascinating individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And when I reached out to Maria, and I was like, would you be willing to be our guest on the inaugural episode of the Make Life Happen podcast? She could not have been more enthusiastic about being the guest. She has a lot of cool topics that she wants to touch on and a lot of personal struggles that she would like to share. So what's going to happen is, because she's in Spain and we're in Saudi Arabia, that interview is going to be on Zoom, whereas the interview with Mahmoud Lashin is going to be right here in studio, right after the live performance. And we're just going to scale this up. I don't really know what I'm doing, and I'm not really trained to be a podcaster or a vlogger or a YouTuber or what have you. I dabbled a little bit with VO work, but in terms of my formal education and my formal experience, I definitely wouldn't describe myself as someone. I definitely wouldn't describe myself as someone who is trained for this. If you guys would like, because this is a very minimalist setup. The idea here is not to spend a boatload of money and rig this joint up with the most high-tech equipment. I wanted this to be minimalist. I wanted to spend the least a bit of money and get the maximum desired impact or output out of it, because part of the mandate of the Make Life Happen podcast is to inspire and to educate normal people, just run-of-the-mill, average Joes who would like to do something like this. So I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to walk you through it, and I'm going to teach you exactly what to buy, where to buy it from, how much you should expect to pay or invest, how you ideally would want to structure your podcast, on the branding side of things, on the technical side of things, on the comms side of things, and if I'm successful, if there's one thing I can hope to achieve out of the MLH podcast, is I would want every single one of you to have his own podcast or her own podcast and just blow up and have hundreds of thousands and even millions of subscribers and surpass me by like a 10 trillion miles. I'm not better than you. I don't think I'm special in any way, shape, or form. And my goal is to shine the spotlight on you. I love having conversations. I love listening to people. I love learning something new every day. So what I would actually like to say at this point in time is thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you for granting me this opportunity to be a vessel for you to share, and for you to enlighten me and bless my life. And in closing, I just want to say, just like the words and the intro go. When you smile, the whole world feels a little more bright. So do something for yourself today and smile, because you're wonderful and you're beautiful and you're smart and you're more powerful than you even realize. And if you believe in yourself as much as the rest of us believe in you, all your hopes and dreams will come true. You will be successful. You will be happy. And it all starts with having a smile on your face. make life happen. And now life makers حنسمع La Vie en Rose لأديث بياف من الفنان محمود لاشين. معنا ضيفنا للحلقة الأولى من The Make Life Happen podcast وهو الفنان محمود. Welcome to the show محمود. أهلا وسهلا. عاش من شافك. نورتنا ونورت الاستوديو. الله يخليك. طبعا هذه أول حلقة من The Make Life Happen podcast وإحنا حرصنا كل الحرص أنه يكون معنا a very special guest في الحلقة الأولى. محمود يمكن سمعتوا عزف الساكسفون في الانترو لل Make Life Happen podcast. محمود ما شاء الله عزف الساكس وأنا يشرفني على المستوى الشخصي أنه يكون معنا محمود اليوم. Let's begin with the first question مع محمود لاشين. من أنت يا محمود؟
سؤال عميق أوي. أنا اسمي محمود لاشين. أهلا وسهلا من مصر، هنا في السعودية من حوالي تقريبا 10 سنين. يعني ميوزك مش حاجة قديمة، يعني مش أنا جاي من مصر عندي خلفية عن الميوزك، لا أنا اتعلمت ميوزك هنا في السعودية.
كم كان عمرك لما وصلت السعودية؟
والله أنا جيت هنا تقريبا كان عندي حوالي 24 أو 25 سنة. ودلوقتي عندي 35 سنة.
ما شاء الله العمر كله عمر كله. احنا نفس العمر. ولما أنت جيت كنت انتهيت من المرحلة الدراسية صح؟
تقريبا جيت بعد ما اتخرجت بحوالي يمكن سنة أو حاجة زي كده، سنة ونص.
ومن وقت ما أنت وصلت السعودية كيف بدأت مسيرتك مع الفن ومع الموسيقى وتحديدا مع الساكس؟
والله هو لما جيت ما كانش فيه حاجة خالص لها علاقة بالموسيقى، يعني لسه شاب جاي جديد، يعني متخرج وجاي بدور على يعني أشوف الأول الشغل، يعني كنت جاي على فرصة عمل وطبعا حاجة كانت لسه كبداية، كانت حاجة قليلة يعني. وكان كل يعني تفكيري في الوقت ده ان انا بس كنت في الناس استقر في الشغل يعني، وبلد جديدة عليا، بشوف لسه الكالتشر مختلفة بتاعت الناس، مش متعود يعني. فده اللي خد مني وقت شوية على ما قدرت ان انا اتأقلم. وبعد ما خلاص بقى موضوع الشغل بالنسبة لي ان انا خلاص عرفت شغلي وعرفت الناس وبقيت كونت صداقات وكده، ابتديت بقى اروح للنكست ستيب، ان انا مثلا ادور على الهواية انا بحبها اعملها او حاجة كده. فالمزيكا ما كانش خالص في بالي وقت، انا بحب الميوزك بس، انما انا عمري ما كان ليا اي اختلاط بالمزيكا.
تسمع الميوزك وتستمتع بالميوزك بس ما كان في تخيل في بالك.
عمري ما كان اي حاجة تربطني بالمزيكا. حتى كان زمان كده الاطفال بيجيبوا لهم البيانو او
صح
الأورج الصغير ده، انا ده حتى ما حدش جابه لي يعني. فما كانش فيه اي حاجه لها علاقه بالمزيكا، بس انا بحب اسمع ميوزك.
لون معين ولا جميع؟
لا عادي، كل حاجه حلوه معموله فيها الميلودي بتاعتها حلوه بحب اسمعها.
نايس.
فجاء في مره كنت شفت حد بيلعب، كنت مسافر بره وشفت حد بيلعب ساكس لايف اول مره اشوفه، يعني بسمعه بس اول مره اشوف حد بيلعبه قدامي كده يعني.
وين كنت؟
كان في امريكا.
اوكي نايس.
كان في زي لاونج او بار او حاجه زي كده، سمعت صوت ميوزك زي جاز او في ساكسفون صوت طالع كده وانا قريب من المكان، فبستكشف كده بشوف في ايه، لقيت في باند كده، الناس جميلة كده، البشر السمرا دول بيلعبوا كلهم بقى الساكسو في على التشيلو وحاجات زي كده، فكان الصوت ممتع يعني، انا قاعد مبسوط جدا. فمن وقتها كان يمكن 2014 اتعلقت بقى ان انا اسمع ميوزك بقى اللي هي لها علاقة بالساكسفون. فقعدت اسمع مزيكا سنتين ثلاثة بسمع ميوزك. وطبعا انت عارف ساعات لما يكون واحد بيحب آلة معينة وانت بتعرفش تلعب يعني، بس بتحب آلة مثلا زي الجيتار، بتقعد تتخيل فتلاقي ايه
بالضبط.
عمال انت ما تعرفش اصلا تعمل ايه، بس
صح.
عمرك ما مسكت جيتار بس بتتخيل ان انت
تعيش الجو.
فانا كان نفس الموضوع بس ساكسفون بقى. فكنت بسمعه اقعد بقى مع نفسي ان انا ايه يعني اعيش الدور ان انا بلعب ساكس، مع ان انا ولا عمري مسكته اصلا.
مم.
ف... فمن هنا بقى ايه، جيت في مرة قلت طب يعني ليه ما، بدل ما انا بعمل كده على الفاضي يعني، ليه ما اجربش.
مهم.
فوقتها خلاص قلت لا انا هجيب ساكسفون واجرب.
هل تتذكر اللحظة بالضبط اللي اتخذت فيها هذا القرار؟ ايش يعني، هل في شيء معين دفعك انه انت يعني تقبل على هذه الخطوة؟ هل كان في اي تأثير خارجي؟ يعني شخص قال لك مثلا يا اخي ليش ما تشتري ساكس وتتعلم تعزف، او مثلا يعني كان قرار عفوي بالكامل؟
هو والله ما كنتش مرتب له الصراحة يعني، هو بس
مم.
كنت جيت فترة من الفترات كده حاسس ان كانت الحياة بشكل عام روتين الشغل وكده، حسيت ان انت يعني ممكن تقعد على الحال دوت سنين وسنين، وفجأة هتلاقي نفسك ما عملتش حاجة غير انك بس بتشتغل، بتصحى
مم.
تشتغل وبترجع. لما تيجي تعمل اي اكتيفيتيز بتحبها او في انت هوايات معينة بتحبها، بتضيف للحياة يعني، بتحس انك الحياة ليها معنى يعني، اتعلمت حاجة جديدة، ضفت حاجة جديدة ايا كان، ممكن تكون ميوزك، ممكن تكون تتعلم لغة جديدة، ممكن تكون تتعلم اي حاجة رسم يعني، ايا كان نوع الهواية اللي انت بتميل ليها يعني. بس لانك كل يوم بتعمل فيها تقدم، فهتحس ان الاضافة اللي انت عملتها دي هي دي يعني اللي العمر بيتقاس بيها، انك
مم.
عملت حاجة جديدة يعني،
اوكي.
امبارح مش زي النهاردة.
بتتحسن
لو
واحد
بتدرس
بالمية
لغة اتعلمت النهاردة حاجة جديدة، فاللي عرفته ضفت حاجة عن امبارح.
اوكي.
انما الشغل هو مفيش هتلاقي روتين عمل وان انت مفيش حاجة جديدة. انما زي الميوزك اتعلمت النهاردة حاجة جديدة، بكرة حاجة اكتر، فبتحس ان دايما في لحياتك معنى يعني.
مهم. مهم.
فدي مهمة يعني ان تكون حتى المفروض الاهل نفسهم يهتموا بده في ولادهم
هل
يعني.
تحس انه خلينا نقول العالم العربي بصفة عامة، او على الاقل مقارنة بدول الغرب، انه في حرص وفي اهتمام على تنمية هذه المواهب الموسيقية والفنية في الجيل الصغير والبراعم وما الى ذلك؟
والله بصراحة بشوف ان في يعني من الاهل وكده يعني، على حسب، هي بتختلف شويه احنا عندنا في العالم العربي على حسب شويه بيبقى الموضوع له علاقه بالمستوى الاجتماعي يعني، او
اوكي.
المستوى المادي كمان يعني. الطبقات المتوسطه فيما فوق بتلاقيهم بيشتغلوا على الموضوع ده، ممكن بيودي ابنه تمارين، بيوديهم النادي، يوديهم يلعبوا ميوزك. بس بأقل من كده شوية الناس اللي هي لا بتبقى مشغولة شوية بمشاغل الحياة وكده بيهتموش، على عكس بره بتلاقي يعني معاهمش لازم هتلاقيهم هم بيبقى عندهم دايما سبل كتير يعني، من المدرسة من
مم.
كده بتخليهم يبقى عندهم ممكن يمارسوا هواية.
مم.
حتى بيعملوا الستايل بتاع يعني المدن والشوارع عندهم وكده، ان هم بيعملوا ملاعب سلة في الشارع، بتلاقي في
مم.
ملاعب كده يعني، حتى مش لازم تشترك في نادي.
مم.
غير احنا في العالم العربي يعني عموما بتلاقي الكلام ده لا لازم يكون عن طريق حاجة يعني، صعب تلاقي الحاجات دي، مش في كله يعني بس في
اوكي.
الأغلبية بتلاقي ده لا عن طريق ان هو لازم تكون مشترك عضو في نادي عشان تدخل تمارس
مم.
اكتيفيتيز كتيرة.
فهمت عليك.
بره بتلاقي الامور دي معمولة لعامة الشعب يعني، كل الناس معهوش بيمارس هواية.
مم. طيب كيف تقارن محمود تكلفة تبني عزف الساكس كهواية مقارنة بتكلفة عزف مثلا البيانو أو الدرامز أو آلة موسيقية أخرى؟ هل يعتبر الساكس من الآلات الموسيقية المكلفة مثلا، أو تعلمها مكلف أو؟
انا لما اقول لك انا اتعلمت ازاي، هتلاقي الموضوع ما كلفنيش 5 ريال.
مم.
فلا، هو على حسب انت، لو انت عاوز تتعلم هتتعلم.
انت شريت الساكس؟
انا اشتريت ساكس، هو التكلفة كانت في تمن الساكس بس، انما
اوكي.
انا علمت نفسي بنفسي.
وبعد كده يوتيوب او ايش كانت
كان في الاول انا جبت لما رحت خدت القرار بقى، قلت هشتري الساكس. هو حتى نفس الساكس اللي معايا ده اشتريته من،
السبع
الموضوع ده
سنوات
كان من،
تقريبا؟
لا موضوع جديد. انا بقول لك في 2014 سمعت حد بيعزف ساكس لاول مره.
اوكي اوكي.
قعدت حوالي 3 سنين او 3 سنين ونص بسمع
واو.
ميوزك فيها
اوكي.
ساكس، ودايما بعمل ان انا كاني خلاص من كتر ما بسمع حاسس ان انا لا يعني ايه، بندمج كأن انا اللي بعزف. فمن حوالي سنتين ونص بس انا اشتريته. يعني انا علاقتي بالمزيكا كلها ابتدت من تقريبا حوالي سنتين ونص،
بس يعني ما شاء الله،
يعني من
اللي
2018.
يسمعك تعزف يعني ما شاء الله يقول
لا
انت
انا
مهندس.
لسه بعتبر نفسي كل يوم بتعلم. انا حتى انا يعني بقول لسه في، يعني ما وصلتش لحاجه،
هل
دي بدايات
عندك
يعني.
هل عندك قدوات موسيقية، سواء في العالم العربي أو في العالم الغربي، سواء ناس بيعزفوا ساكس أو بيغنوا أو أي حاجة، يعني ناس تقول أنا أتمنى في يوم من الأيام أوصل لمرحلة البني آدم ده؟
لا انا
مم.
بصراحه مش هجاوب الاجابه بتاعت ان هو في اسامي مسميات ناس عايزه ابقى زيها. انا بلعبه مجرد ان هي هوايه، انا حابب حاجه فبلعبه.
أوكي.
في ناس بسمعها بس عشان ابقى انا زيه او بتاع، ما بطمحش لكده يعني، لان
أوكي.
انا مش واخد الموضوع من، لا دي حاجه انا بحبها.
مهم. مهم.
فعامل زي انت مثلا بتحب تلعب جيتار، فعايز ان انت تعمل نغمة على الجيتار، تلعب جيتار تطور نفسك فيه، ما فيش طموح انك تبقى زي عازف معين يعني.
مم.
هو مجرد ان حاجة بترضيك لما بتعملها، لما بتلعب جيتار وبتلاقي نفسك قدرت انك تلعب بيه اغنية او تطلع بيه نغمة، انت بتبقى في شعور جواك كده بالسعادة يعني. هو
مم.
ده مش عاملها الموضوع ان انا كنت طول عمري عايش في المزيكا، ولا بصراحة هو الموضوع الميوزك جه عليا يعني جديد، ان انا
مم.
حابب حاجة فقلت اجربها.
طيب، نفسيا وعاطفيا، يعني شخص، ما أعرف لو يعني من الصحيح أنه نعتبرك يعني مغترب، يعني أنت يعني ساكن في السعودية ولكن أهلك أتوقع أغلبهم في مصر،
هم
صح؟
كلهم في مصر.
كلهم في مصر. فهل يعني إلى حد ما بشكل أو بآخر تحس أنه تبنيك الآلة الموسيقية وعزفك للساكس يعني يعود عليك بفوائد وعوائد نفسية
هو
وعاطفية، كذا ترتاح كذا
ما
ترخي
هو
بعد
هقول لك
مم.
بالنسبه انت قلت كويس، قلت ان لما يكون في حد آه، مغترب وبعيد عن اهله، ف بيكون في اوقات غير اوقات الشغل، هو بيكون فيها مع يعني عندك صحابك عندك كده، بس في النهايه انت في شعور بالوحده يعني، انك بتبقى عاوز في حاجه تشغلك، بس حاجه تفيدك في نفس الوقت. يعني في اوقات فراغك او كده تعمل حاجة تحس ان هي فيها شعور بالسعادة، يعني انك حاجة انت بتحبها، هواية تمارسها ايا كان. يعني مش ضروري ميوزك، ممكن تكون حد يحب يلعب كورة، بيلعب رياضة معينة. ما فيش حاجة اسمها برضو سن، ان انت سن معين. انا يعني انا متعلم ساكس وانا عندي 33 سنة.
ما شاء
قبل ال
الله.
33 سنة ما كنتش ولا
زيرو.
عندي زيرو
في
معرفش حاجة
ناس
خالص.
عندها معتقد، ربما صحيح أو غير صحيح، أنه زي الكاراتيه مثلا أو زي اللغة معينة زي الفرنسي أو ما شابه، لازم الواحد يتعلم وهو صغير في السن. وكل ما الواحد كبر في السن، وأنا دائما أسمع الناس تقول، أقول لها مثلا ليش ما تتعلم آلة موسيقية جديدة أو فن قتالي أو لغة؟ يقولوا يا أخي أنا خلاص شيبت، صار عمري صار عمري 27 سنة، صار عمري 33 سنة، أنا كبرت على الحاجات دي. فهل أنت ترى بأنه لا يوجد سقف في العمر لتعلم أي شيء؟
ما اكيد انا مثال يعني، اكيد انا شايف كده، لان انا يعني مع ان الواحد يعني اي حاجه بيحبها لازم اصل انت هي حياه واحده. يعني مثلا انت ما عملت اعملها، حتى مجرد انك يعني مش ضروري تبقى مثلا كاراتيه هيروح ياخد بطوله، بس روح
صح.
اتعلم البيزكس، شوف الناس، اتعرف
exactly.
على الناس اللي بتلعب، روح المكان اللي بيلعب. مثلا لو انت حابب يعني الرياضه دي، روح خد الجزء البسيط منها، خد يعني اتعلم الاساسيات. واحد ايا كان ايه الهوايه اللي انت بتحبها،
امم.
حتى اعمل فيها يعني ليفل 1،
امم.
بس على الاقل يبقى اسمك مارستها، عامل زي يكون حاجه في حياتك نفسك فيها جربتها.
ويمكن بعض الناس يفكروا في البداية، أنا حشتري ساكس وحدفع مبلغ وقدره، وبعدين الساكس لازم مثلا أهتم فيه بشكل معين. أنت ذكرت في حديث سابق لنا أنه لازم في قطعة لازم تتحط في المية ساعة،
ده قبل
نص
العزف،
ساعة.
الريد
يا
الخشب.
ففي ناس يمكن تستصعب كل الأمور هذه وتقول شغلانة صرفية، وقت، مساحة، مجهود. فما ردك للناس هذول؟
والله بص، انا مع ان الواحد لازم ياخد خطوة ايا كان. يعني يعني عايز تعرف، انت لو طول عمرك بتقول انا نفسي العب اي آلة، حد بيقول نفسي كان يلعب عود او جيتار او whatever، هو جيب الآلة طالما انت حابب قوي يعني، وعلى طول عندك احساس انك نفسك تجرب، جيبها. وحتى اذا زهقت منها مش مشكلة، واذا سبتها وما اهتمتش بعدين مش مشكلة، بس على الاقل انت جواك هتبقى جربت.
مهم.
يعني يوم ما مش هيجي في فترة لا تقول يا ريتني كنت جبت واتعلمت وبتاع،
مم.
جيبها. لان اللي عنده دافع، وفعلا دافع حقيقي من جواه، مش مجرد ان هو عايز يجيب الحاجة بس وبعد ما يجيبها تلاقيه زهق منها بسرعة، يبقى هي ما كانتش من جواه قوي يعني، بس هو
مم.
مجرد كانت ولدت اللحظة
مرحلة
شرارة
وعدت
كده
يا.
وجت. انا لما جبت اكيد في ناس كتير ممكن تكون اشترت ساكسفون وممكن جابته استصعبته وركنته يعني،
أوكي.
فهو ما كانش عنده الموتيفيشن قوي ان هو يتعلم. يعني هي كانت
مم.
شرارة كده شافه وشاف. انما لو هو اي حد عنده يعني مثابرة يعني،
مم.
حابب بقى الموضوع ده، هيفضل وراه. يعني هيفضل وراه مهما حصلت، مهما قعدت شفافك من تحت من الاول هتلاقيها متقطعة، مش هتقدر تدوس عليها، هتلاقي
مم.
نفسك بتدوخ عشان بتنفخ كتير، يعني هتتحمل كل شوية الحاجات اللي هي في الاول عشان تبتدي تعرف تطلع نغمة وتبتدي تلعب عليه، تتحمل يعني. لو انت عندك الدافع، انما لو ما عندكش هتجيبه وتجرب شوية وبتاع. وده برضه انا مش بشوفه وحش بصراحة.
مم.
يعني انا ما بحبش ان هو كلمة يا ريتني دي، او لو جرب
صح.
وافشل احسن ما تجربش.
درر صراحة.
اه
كل واحد يعني إيش أسوأ شيء حيصير؟ يعني
ايوه
حيصير
جرب،
جزء من الأثاث في
عشان ما
المنزل.
تقولش يا ريتني. اصل انت لو
Exactly.
جربت وفشلت هتقول على الاقل انا يعني، واحد زي ما تقول نفسه يلعب كاراتيه، طب روح جرب وروح، هتلاقي الموضوع صعب ومتعب وبتاع، كويس انك جربت يعني.
مم.
على الاقل مش مشكله يعني، انا لما اجرب وافشل احسن ما اجربش خالص.
صح صح. الأهل، إيش كانت ردة فعلهم؟ هم طبعا عرفوا إنه أنت تعزف ساكس.
عرفوا لما اتعلمت. ما قلتش لحد في الاول طبعا، لان الموضوع في الاول كان صعب. ما انا اشتريته، وانا كنت اصلا كنت متخيل ان الساكسفون هو عباره عن يعني هو الاداه دي. انا قلت بالظبط ان الواحد انا عارف نغمه وبعمل النغمه ببقي بتطلع ساكسفون. يعني ما كنتش متخيل ان الموضوع فيه الكيز وفيه الحاجات دي يعني بالشكل ده. انا قلت دي
مم.
بتحسن يعني. انا عارف اغنيه، فالاغنيه دي بعملها بصوت. يعني مثلا زي اول اغنيه اتعلمتها كانت فلاي مي تو ذا مون،
مم.
فكنت فاكر ان لما يعني اقول انا كده تو تورورو تو، انا بعملها ببقي هنا فبتطلع النغمه. كنت متخيل ان دي الاله.
وكان
يعني عايز اوريك مدى
الواقع.
الجهل، طبعا جهل يعني. دي
أوكي.
حاجه ملهاش علاقه، مش يعني الموضوع بعيد تماما عن كده.
وبعدين لما عرفوا الأهل، إيش كانت ردة فعلهم؟ كانوا مبسوطين؟
اه
كانوا
طبعا
أوكي.
طبعا كانوا مبسوطين. عملت كان في اغنيه يمكن حتى نزلتها عندي على البيج، كانت عملتها، كانت اغنيه اول اغنيه بعتها يعني لاهلي. كان في اغنيه اسمها مسافر وحدك بتاعت محمد عبد الوهاب،
الله.
فتعلمتها وبعتها عشان كان جدتي بتحب تسمعها دايما وكده وانا صغير،
ما شاء
فمعلقه في وداني،
ما شاء الله.
فتعلمتها وبعتها بس.
That's good. طيب، وفي العالم العربي أو في المكان اللي إحنا فيه حاليا، كيف تشوف مستوى المواهب، سواء في العزف، في التلحين، في الغنى؟ هل تشوف انه المستوى زي ما انت كنت متخيل يعني قبل لا تيجي السعودية، او اعلى او اقل، او ما هو تقييمك للكادر الحالي اللي موجود؟
والله هو يعني حاليا السعودية في تغير يعني، ما شاء الله. الواحد شايف سريع كمان يعني، لولا بس جت فترة موضوع كورونا.
امم.
بس كده بصراحة واخدين مش خطوات، كان في قفزات يعني. يعني انا افتكر اول ما اتعلم ما كانش في حاجة خالص يعني. كان الموضوع شوية كان صعب. بس
امم.
بعدين الموضوع ما شاء الله ابتدى تبقى فيه تطور، وابتدت تبقى فيه كتير مجالات ان الناس تتعلم وحاجات زي كده. فالواحد شاف حاجات كتير دلوقتي الفترة الأخيرة دي، ان لا بقت فتح المجال يعني. ان بقى ممكن الناس دلوقتي تقدر تتعلم وتجيب، وفي بقى اعتقد كمان بقت في بعض المعاهد او المدارس تقدر تدرس. فزمان اكيد ما كانش فيه، لان ما كانش فيه يعني حد يديك يعلمك او يحطك على اول الطريق، او انك تمارس حاجه هي اصلا اوريدي ما كانت قليله،
مم.
ما كانش لها وجود. انا ما اعرفش يعني، لما جيت انا كنت شايفها قليله،
مم.
بس لا بعدين خلاص بقى الموضوع بقى مفتوح. الموضوع بقى في اماكن كتير بتخلي اللي عنده موهبة يطلع يعرضها. في حاجات بقت دلوقتي رحت منهم واحدة كانت في قاعة هنا عاملينها اللي هو الجامينج، يعني
مم.
بتروح انت بآلتك بتسجل وبتدخل تتعرف على اي موسيقيين تانيين، وتدخلوا تطلعوا على الستيج قدام الناس تلعبوا.
أو واو.
الكلام ده كانش زمان، الناس ما كانش بتطلع يعني. دلوقتي ابتدى ده يطلع وده يطلع، فابتدى الناس تتعرف، وابتدى الناس تهتم، وابتدى حد يشوف حد بيعزف يسأله انا عايز اتعلم الآلة دي منين. ابتدى
مم.
الناس الموضوع لا دلوقتي طبعا غير موضوع
ما
يعني.
شاء الله.
الحمد لله ماشي في خطوات كويسة، لو استخدم طبعا أي حاجة تستخدم باعتدال وتستخدم بشكل جيد وتبقى متوظفة صح،
مم.
فهي ليها معنى. يعني الميوزك أنا بشوفها إن هي كويسة في حالة إنها توظف صح، إن هي
مم.
حاجة، أي حاجة عموما، آه، سواء موفيز أو يعني أعمال فنية بكافة أشكالها، مع ان هي تاخد اطار شكله كويس ويكون ليها هدف يعني، آه، تتوظف صح، انا معاها بالعكس. فاللي شايفه اللي بيحصل هنا لو استخدم فعلا صح، لا هيبقى ليه تأثير كويس جدا على الناس يعني.
والآن لايف ميكرز حنسمع شو حلو من الفنان زياد برجي بعزف الأستاذ محمود لاشين. تقييمك لمدى صعوبة تعلم آلة الساكس من 1 ل10؟ يعني 1 أسهل آلة موسيقية، أسهل حاجة تتعلمها في الحياة، و10 أصعب شيء، أصعب من الفيزياء النووية. ما هو تقييمك؟
لا هو السؤال نفسه هيحبط الناس يعني، مدى صعوبة السكس يعني. لا
سهولة أو صعوبة يعني؟
لا هو بص، انا مع ان مفيش حاجة مستحيل طالما اي حد عمل حاجة، يعني بني ادم وبشري زينا عمل حاجة، مش واحد خارق للطبيعة يعني. فبالتالي انا كمان حاسس ان انا يعني اقدر اعملها يعني. يعني طالما حد قدر قبل مني يعزف ساكس، يبقى انا بحس ان أنا خلاص يعني انا كمان اعزف ساكس.
بس هل هي
في
أصعب؟
حد اتعلم طيران، انا ممكن اتعلم طيران يعني. طالما حد عملها قبلي وفي سبل تعليم، فانا كمان اقدر اعملها
ب-
طالما انا عندي الدافع يعني، فاهم.
بس هل هي أصعب مثلا من الجيتار؟ يعني أنا شخصيا أشوف ناس يعني بسم الله ما شاء الله على مد البصر بيعزفوا جيتار، بس عدد اللي يعزفوا ساكسفون أو الويند انسترومنتس، الفلوت، الكلارينات، الساكسفون، الترومبون، الترامبت، الحاجات هذه، أحس أنه عددهم أصغر بكثير. فهل يعكس ذلك إلى حد ما صعوبة بالمقارنة، صعوبة تعلم آلة زي الساكسفون بالمقارنة مع تعلم آلة زي الجيتار؟
بص هو فعلا آلات النفخ تعتبر من الآلات الصعبة
مهم.
يعني. بخلاف مش بنقول صعبة ان كل هم اي حاجة تتعلمها طبعا اكيد هتقابل واحد صعوبات يعني. بس هو الساكس لانه الآلات النفخ عموما مش بس بتعتمد على الجيتار، انت بتستخدم ايدك في البيانو، بتستخدم ايدك في العود وكده يعني، بيبقى الاستخدام اكتر في الصوابع والايد. الساكس بتستخدم يعني اكتر من حاجة. اول
مم.
حاجة انت بتستخدم ايدك، وفي نفس الوقت بتستخدم النفخ.
مم.
فبيبقى في يعني صعوبة شوية انك تقدر تسيطر بين انك تظبط النفس وتنفخ
مم.
في الآلة، وفي نفس الوقت النفس اللي انت مطلعه ده انت بتحوله لنغمة من خلال صوابعك، فلازم يكون في سرعة رد فعل سريع. فبتكون طبعا هي صعوبته في ده. وتاني حاجة انت كمان بيبقى الموضوع مرهق شوية في الأول، إنك بتحمل هنا على أثناء العزف وكده بتحمل شوية على السنين مع الشفايف فبيكون في مجهود.
اوكي.
طبعا كل آلة يعني، حتى الجيتار بتلاقي لازم الواحد صابعه في الأول بتوجعه، بتلاقي يعني هو كل آلة فيها صعوبات، بس الساكس وآلات النفخ عموما بيكون التحديات فيها الصعوبات شوية أكتر.
طب انت محمود كيف بالضبط تعلمت؟ يعني جاك واحد خلينا نقول حنسميه حمزة مع 12 سنة راح وشرى ساكسفون ودخل كذا متحمس وقال أنا أبغى أتعلم ساكسفون. كيف نوجه حمزة الصغير؟ هل في مثلا قناة على اليوتيوب يعني تنصحوا أنه يتابعها، أو مدرب معين، أو أكاديمية؟ ما هي الطريقة المثلى لتعلم آلة الساكسفون؟
والله انا كمان عشان انا لسه بتعلم يعني، مش انا لسه الشخص اللي هدي الناس نصايح قوي، عشان ما ابقاش عامل يعني ان انا لا انا
كفاك تواضعا يعني.
لا والله بجد انا يعني لسه برضه انا شايف نفسي لسه برضه بتعلم. بس بنصح اي حد طبعا دلوقتي. انا يمكن كانت الظروف غير. انت بتقول لواحد مثلا الشباب الصغيرين او كده اللي هيتعلموا، يمكن هم ما عندهمش ضغوطات كتير يعني، ممكن ما يكونش عنده مواعيد شغل كتير وكده، فيقدر يلتحق باي حاجه موجوده تعليميه، مدارس او كده، تبقى فرصته افضل يعني. ده في الفتره اللي هو بنتكلم في الجيل اللي هو يعني ما عندوش التزامات وارتباطات وعائليه وماديه، وعنده ان في يومه بيروح في حاجات كتير، فيقدر ان هو عنده الوقت الكافي. بنيجي بقى على الناس اللي هم الكبار اللي زي حالتنا العواجيز بقى دول دول بقى لازم يبقى موضوعه ان هو اذا عنده وقت فعلا يقدر يوفر وقت، اكيد افضل له ان هو يتعلم على ايد حد.
اوكي.
اسهل له. ما قدرش هياخد بقى الطريق اللي انا خدته ده، بس هو صعب شوية يعني. انت بتتعلم وانت ما عندكش اي خلفية ومحدش علمه. فانا لما جبت الساكسفون اول مرة يعني استلمته واشتريته اونلاين وجالي، فبيجي هو مفكك يعني، مش عارف حتى انا اركبه. ما كنتش عارف انه يجي مفكك اصلا. انا فاكر هو بيجي ما اعرفش ان في تركيبات وفي حاجات وفي زي الريشه اللي بتركب فيه ولازم تتبل في ميه الاول وتعملها وتحطها، يعني في قصه كده بتتعمل. انا كل ده ما كنتش عارفه. انا كنت فاكره هي آلة بتيجي كده تنفخ فيها تطلع زماره يعني. ف فلما جالي كنت متلبك بقى اللي مش عارف هعمل ايه. فتحت يوتيوب، عملت سيرش على ان انت لو اشتري نيو ساكسفون، فلقيت حد برضو جايب نفس الموديل اللي انا جبته، الستودنت موديل.
اوكي.
يعني حتى هو في اعلى من ده الموديل اللي هو البيجنرز او الستودنت يعني، غير في اعلى منه، في بروفيشنال، في كان وانترميديت. ف فجبته طبعا دوت في الاول وشفت ازاي حد نفس الموديل وحطيته، شفت حد ازاي بيركبه ازاي كده، قعدت معاه خطوه بخطوه لحد ما ركبته. وابتديت بقى هنا رحله العذاب بقى. هو طبعا فتح وركبه واشتغل على طول يعني. هو اللي انا شفته اليوتيوب كان يعني تقريبا يمكن ده العاشر اللي بيشتريه لنفسه ولا حاجه، فالراجل جاهز هو فتح. انا فتحت بقى لا خلاص بقى مفيش بطه بلدي، مفيش اي، مش عارف اي حاجه. اجرب، مفيش صوت بيطلع اصلا.
واو.
احاول اركب الحاجات بتاع، مفيش صوت. حتى كلمت ساعتها صاحبي اللي هو يعني ساعدني ان انا اشتريه، ودخلنا قعدنا سيرش سوا وكده. هو برضه ما عندوش اي فكره عن المزيكا، وهو قال لي حرام تشتريه. في واحد صاحبي لبناني كان قاعد معايا قال لي بتضاع فلوسك.
يا ساتر.
فقلت له يا عم هجيبه. قال لي ده صعب جدا، من الالات الصعبه ومش عارف ايه. فكلمته قلت له ما بيطلعش صوت. قال لي لا انت المشكله عندك. بقول له خربان ما بيطلعش صوت. قال لي لا انت اللي خربان مش هو. ف فضلت قاعد يومين ثلاثه مش عارف اطلع صوت نهائي، مش عارف اعمل ايه يعني خلاص. وهنا انا ما اعرفش حد ولا اعرف فيه مدرب. وكان من سنتين او سنتين ونص ما كانش فيه برضو قوي حته ان فيه ميوزك ولا كنا نتلاقي ناس او تتقابل مع ناس بتلعب مزيكا. فما عنديش اي حد لا اتصل بيه ولا اعرفه ولا اي حاجه. ففضلت قاعد حزين كده ان انا طب بعدين يعني. فابتديت بقى ايه، لا فتحت يوتيوب وابتديت اعمل سيرش. how to play saxophone. فلقيت كام فيديو كده، في قعدت ادخل بينهم، لقيت حد بيشرح ازاي عايز تلعب بالساكسفون وانت اول مرة تلعب وعمرك ما لعبت. اول حاجة رجع الساكسفون تاني الشنطة.
اوكي.
فقلت ايه، رجع الساكسفون الشنطة. كملت الفيديو، قال لازم تتعود الاول ازاي تعرف تنفخ، بعدين تبتدي تطلع الساكسفون. فقال بقى طبعا ارشادات كده ان انت تجيب ازاز وتجرب تحاول تطلع صوت من الازازه، لان هو لازم وانت بتنفخ في الساكس يكون النفس طالع كده يعني، ما تكونش يعني في خط مستقيم كده.
اوكي.
فجبت الازازه قعدت اجرب ماشي بازازه في البيت، كل ما اكون قاعد فاضي ماشي بالازازه لحد ما ابتديت اطلع منها صوت فعلا، وعلى حرف الازازه بتنفخ كده فتحاول تطلع صوت. طلعت الصوت اوكي، قال لك ركب وابتدي بقى ايه تجرب. ركبته وببتدي اجرب، طلع صوت مزعج جدا جدا. يعني طلع صوت، بس هو طلع صوت بس صوت مزعج يعني. يعني صوت باص قطر، في صوت كده مزعج. وانا اصلا ساكن في مجمع سكني، فانا عمال ساعة ونص بعمل نفس الصوت المزعج ده، بس انا عايز اشوف اخره ايه يعني بقى. عمال اجرب ادوس فوق وادوس تحت، ما مش عارف حاجه. فلقيت السكيورتي جاي لي بيخبط عليا، فبيقول لي الجيران بتشتكي ان في صوت مزعج. انا اندمجت ونسيت بقى. فقلت له معلش، انا ما قلتلوش هلا، اصل انا بعزف يعني، بعزف ايه الصوت دوت مش صوت عزف يعني. فقلت له معلش انا يمكن معلي التلفزيون او حاجه وسوري وكده. فابتدت من هنا رحله المعاناه. انا دلوقتي حتى الاله اللي انا اخترتها مش هقدر العبها في البيت لانها مزعجه. يعني هتعلمها ازاي؟ فبس انا عندي زي ما قلت لك، انا عندي عايز اتعلمه. فابتديت الاول اقرا بقى في المزيكا، هي ايه الميوزك بقى. عرفت ان في حاجه اسمها نوتس.
اوكي.
دو ري مي فا صول، ازاي هي بتتقسم وفي حاجات في شارب وفي نغمات مع، يعني ابتدى الموضوع ايه مينور وميجور. فابتديت اقرا بقى، قعدت حوالي شهر خلاص ما بلمسش الساكس خالص لان انا مش فاهم حاجه يعني، مش فاهم مزيكا. بس قعدت اقرا كتير جدا في الموضوع، ايه هي النغمات واتعملت ازاي، وفي نغمه والتايمنج بتاع النغمه بتكون التايمنج بتاعها 4 عدات، عد هاف نوت. ابتديت اعرف كل دوت، اقعد اقراه خلاص لحد ما فهمت كل حاجه. فهمت المزيكا ماشيه ازاي، مش كل حاجه اللي هو اللي يقضي الغرض يعني، فاهم. فبس فين بقى الكلام ده هنا بقى. ما هي بقى المشكله كانت في ان خلاص عرفنا ان في دوري مي وفي النغمات ماشيه كده. ده فين هنا؟ عايز ادور. فابتديت برضه اعمل سيرش على جوجل وكده، اكتب مثلا دو التو ساكسفون كيز. فين هي المينور او الميجور او كده، انا عارفهم يعني. انا رسمت السلم الموسيقي قدامي وعايز النغمه دي بتطلع من هنا ازاي.
اوكي.
فابتديت اشوف يجي لي الرسومات بتاعته،
التربيط.
فلما لقيت الشكل كده رحت انا طابع ورق عليه رسومات ساكسفون، واكتب الدو واعلم على، لان في زراير كتير يعني، في 28 زرار فانا هتوه فيهم يعني.
واو.
يعني في كتير. فعرفت مثلا ان الدو هي الزرار اللي هنا، فخلاص انا عرفت ان دي الدو. ده الدو. الزرار ده، فده يبقى خلاص الدو. رحت انا عامل رسمه ان ده الدو وظللت عليها، وده الدو رسمته وحطيته على الحيط. فعملت السلم الموسيقي كله على الحيط بالساكس يعني، دو ري مي فا صول كله. فبعد ما عملت كله قدامي بقى ظاهر قدامي. طب انا عايز اجرب بقى ده، اعزف تعزف بيه طبعا بيطلع يعني، تدوس على زرار وتعزف تنفخ في الماوس بيس، بيطلع لك كذا صوت من نفس الزرار. هو في صوت واحد صح والباقي كله غلط.
واو.
بما اني برضو يعني انا عايز برضو اتعلم، فقعدت ادور اشوف اعمل ايه. طلع ان في ابلكيشن بتعمل له داونلود وبتعزف النغمه، اذا النغمه صح هو بيديك مؤشر أخضر. ان اخضر وهابي فيس كده تلاقيه طالع. فدي صح، تلاقي وش احمر لا انجري كده غلط. فقعدت اتدرب عليهم لحد ما بقت الوشوش كلها بتطلع خضرة.
ايش اسم الابلكيشن؟
والله هحاول اطلعه لك.
نفيد اللايف ميكرز اللي بيشاهدونا الان وبيسمعونا.
انا عندي هنا
على اليوتيوب وعلى الايتونز. طبعا اكيد احنا حنذكر كل بيانات التواصل مع محمود سواء على الانستغرام او السوشيال ميديا الاخرى، عشان كلكم يا لايف ميكرز يا صناع الحياة عايزينكم تتابعوا الفنان محمود وتدعموه بكلمات إيجابية. وإن شاء الله أول ما تنزل حاجة جديدة حلوة حنكون أول
حبيبي.
من يعلم بها ويعرف بها.
في ابلكيشن كنت بجيبه اسمه ساكس فينجر،
أوكي. ساكس
وفي
فينجر.
وفي كي نوت.
كي نوت. أوكي.
دي كنت من اللي انا بستخدمها.
مم.
ف فبعدين خلاص عديت المرحله دي ان انا عرفت بقى النغمات، نزلت اجرب بقى. فروحت منزل الميوزك شيت لاول اغنيه كانت فلاي مي تو ذا مون.
ليش فلاي مي تو ذا مون؟
عشان دي اللي سمعتها كان الراجل بيلعبها اول اغنيه
في أمريكا. أوه واو.
فهي علقت معايا بقى.
وانت كنت عارف انه في بني ادم اسمه فرانك سيناترا، وفرانك
اه
سيناترا
اه
يعني عريق
انا كنت عارف الاغنيه بس كنتش عارف مين بيغنيها الصراحه.
اوكي.
بس بعدين بقى خلاص عرفت بقى دين مارتن وفرانك سيناترا، ما دخلت شويه بقى بقوا زملاء يعني.
That's nice.
فابتديت اتعرف عليهم.
That's nice.
فنزلت الميوزك شيت بتاعت الفلاي مي تو ذا مون، وابتديت بقى ان ايه، شفتها بقى فعارف ان هنا خلاص هدوس مثلا الصول، حرف الصول يعني الجي او ابتديت عرفت بقيت اكتب الحروف بتاعتها. وابتديت بقى اجرب. فاول حاجه بقى اللي هو النغمه الاولى طلعتها. بعدين النغمه التانية ترى تا تا فتا ترى تا عملتها بالساكس اول نغمه.
yeah.
انا عايز اقول لك مش فرحه عاديه.
اكيد.
والكلام ده بقى ما كانش في البيت، لان طبعا انا عامل سكيورتي جالي وبتاع وكنت في الشتاء.
رحت البحر
والله اشتريت كشاف
yeah.
واشتريت جوانتي وقطعت الصوابع عشان اعرف اعزف.
mm.
وجبت كشاف وبقيت بقعد في حديقة كل يوم بقعد ساعة ونص. قعدت لمدة مثلا على الوضع ده لمدة 3 شهور، لحد ما ابتديت يعني شوية الدنيا ظبطت، ابتديت ارجع البيت على الاقل. لما بقيت ارجع البيت واعزف نغمة الناس كانت الجيران تتقبل، مش صوت قطر وصوت اتوبيس وبتاع.
ويمكن صاروا يطلبوا منك.
فعلا والله. فما بقيت خلاص يعني قعدت الفترة دي كلها كنت في الشارع بلطو وقاعد. وبعدين الساكس النفس سخن وهو متلج من البرد، فكان حطوا لي عبد بخار ميه. يعني كانت قصه كده، مش عايز اعرف الناس معانا، بس هي كانت قصه صعبه يعني.
هي يمكن اهم يعني رساله نوجهها اليوم لصناع الحياه our life makers، وهي رساله تاليه: لا تيأس مهما كانت الصعاب والتحديات والعراقيل. لا تيأس، لأنه لو محمود يأس ما كان وصل للمرحلة اللي هو فيها الآن. حتواجه تحديات، ولكن كون حليم وكون صبور، ولا تكون قاسي على نفسك، لأنه الساكسوفون أو مهما كانت الآلة الموسيقية أو مهما كانت المهارة it's not easy, it's not supposed to be easy. زي ما قال محمود، انت ما حتطلعها من الباكس وحتنفخ فيها وحيطلع صوت. It's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of effort. ولكن يعني خلي إيمانك في نفسك قوي. ولو أنت كنت من صناع الحياة فإحنا كلنا يعني هندعم بعض وحنكون واقفين مع بعض. وهذه يعني فكرة make life happen، إنه بكل يعني إيجابية وبكل يعني أخوة ومحبة إحنا ندعم بعض ونساند بعض. واعتبرنا يا محمود يعني إخوانك طول الحياة إن شاء الله. أنا بقي عندي أو تبقى لدي سؤال واحد فقط، وإحنا شاكرين لك وقتك معنا اليوم في أول حلقة من The Make Life Happen podcast. والسؤال هو: أين يرى محمود لاشين نفسه بعد 5 سنوات؟ إيش هو الهدف اللي أنت تبغى توصل له؟ مثلا تفتح أكاديمية أو تعزف مثلا في حفلات موسيقية. إيش الشيء اللي تبغى توصل له؟
والله هو يعني على مستوى المزيكا وكده أنا بصراحة سعيد هو يوم بيومه. يعني مش هقولك إن أنا ما بحبش اللي هو إن أنا بعد 5 سنين وبعد 10 سنين أكون فين. يعني بعيش وقتي يعني بوقته. ومش المزيكا مش بلعبها لهدف ان هو اوصل بيها لحاجة او لكده، لا بالعكس، ان هو كل يوم بيومه. يعني انا عملت لك الميوزك معاك في بتاعة الانترو، قعدت معاك النهاردة، بكرة يمكن اقابل حد تاني وكده. فبسيب الحياة دايما هي اللي تمشي في اتجاهها. يعني انا بس دايما بجتهد بعمل اللي عليا. بسعى دايما ان انا اكون احسن، بس اللي جاي بكره ايه بس بصراحه اسيبه لبكره يعني. ما بقولش ان انا حاطط بلانز وخطط وكده، عشان دايما اللي بيقعد يخطط كتير وكده بيحط اكسبكتيشن عاليه قوي،
صح.
لما بيحققهاش بيزعل. فدايما لا، انا بس ان انا الواحد انا راضي يعني الحمد لله، يعني بكره ايا كان جايب لي ايه بكون راضي بيه.
ويمكن هذه بحد ذاتها it's a very important tip. خلي عندك هدف يعني long term، ولكن take every day، يعني يوم
عيش
بيومه.
يومك بيومه
عيش يومك بيومه.
عشان تتبسط يعني.
صح، وحاول انك انت تكون كل يوم افضل من اليوم اللي قبليه، حتى
بالظبط.
لو 1% 2%. يعني فهي حتتراكم.
طبعا.
احنا ما نحس انه بدوران
اصل انا هقول لك على حاجه،
الارض
هي
والشمس.
يعني الحياه هي حياه واحده.
مم.
فانا لو دلوقتي قلت فين بقى، اول حاجه مجرد ما انت سالت انت شايف نفسك فين بعد 5 سنين، انا شايف نفسي عندي 40 سنه مثلا. فهتلاقي نفسك انت اول ما بتفكر ان
الله
بعد
اكبر.
5 سنين انت عندك داخل في ال40، ففي مسؤوليات، فاصلا السؤال لوحده مش هيخليك تحس انك مطمن،
of course of course.
لانك بتحس ان كل ما تبص لقدام انت مستنيك مسؤوليات اكبر او كده. فانا
مم.
ليه هفكر بعد 5 سنين بس؟ مش معناه ان انا ما اشتغلش يعني، لا اشتغل واعمل لبكره،
صح
ان بكره يكون احسن.
صح.
ان انا اجتهد في شغلي وبعدين مثلا في الشغل بتاعي بسيب لبكره برضو انا بجتهد، بس اسيب ان انا ممكن ازيد
مم.
اعلى اعمل مش يعني دي سايبها خلاص، لان
مم.
هو انا بحس ان الحياه بالظبط عامل زي ما يكون هو رصيد بيتجمع لك، كل ما بتجتهد مش ضروري هتاخده امتى. ممكن ما اخدوش
مم.
بعد ال5 سنين، ممكن اخده بعد سنه، بعد 2، ممكن اخده وقت.
ويمكن بعد 5
هو
ايام.
كريدت يعني،
صح.
كريدت يعني انت والله فعلا بحس بيجري مثلا حد بيشتغل على حاجه وما حققهاش، هو بيبقى زعلان
مم.
وحزين، يقول لك انا ما حققتش او كده، ما يعرفش ان الجري بتاعه والسعي بتاعه ده كريدت متشله، عشان
مم.
هياخدهم كلهم مع بعض. عاوز
مم.
يكون الناس داخلين جمعيه
وما
كده،
في مجهود يضيع.
مفيش مجهود بيضيع، ربنا ما بيضيعش مجهود حد.
جميل
يعني
جميل.
كل حاجه احنا بنعملها ربنا بيكون مطلع طبعا على جريك وسعيك، لان في
مم.
النهايه انت هتؤجر عليه، هتاخده طالما بتجري في الخير، بتجري في حاجه يعني فيها بينك وبين نفسك راضي عنها، وبينك وبين ربك برضو عارف انك ما بتعملش حاجه غلط.
مم.
فدايما اجتهد واعمل اللي عليك في شغلك، في حياتك، في علاقاتك، في الاسريه، كل حاجه هتعملها دلوقتي هو زي استثمار هتلاقيه. يعني ممكن اقعد اشتغل ما يجيلكش كتير، اشتغل وما يجيلك، بس انت يعني واحد اشتغل شغل مثلا يساوي 1000
مم.
وفي الاخر لقى نفسه اتحصل على 100، ما يزعلش، لان هو ربنا شايل له دوت في حاجة تانية،
صح
هيلاقي ده كله كريدت
صح.
يعني.
وهي اتس نوت مش كليشيه يعني، او مقوله بس يعني فقط بغيه ان تذكر او تقال. It's not the destination, it's the journey. انه انت لما تحط رجلك اليسار قدام رجلك اليمين وتجتهد ويعني طموحك وهدفك يكون انه انت تتحسن 1% كل يوم.
طبعا
وانت يكون عندك ايمان انه هذا الرصيد يعني لن
موجود هو
يضيع.
نفسه. طب
yeah.
يعني في حاجة مش عايزين ناخدها بس حوار يبقى دينيا بس، وكل اعملوا فسيرى الله عملكم ورسوله والمؤمنون، ما قالش يعني وكل اعملوا
صح
فسيرى الله، هو ربنا هيشوف بقى عملك ده.
صح.
يعني انت اشتغل وما تقلكش انك هتاخد حسابك دلوقتي،
يس.
انت بس اعمل واجتهد واعمل اللي عليك، وبعدين في الاخر انت هتلاقي جريك ده عمره بيروح على الفاضي.
amazing.
لان مش كل الرزق مش كله فلوس، كمان ممكن يكون واخده صحة، واخده سعادة، واخده انك حققت حاجات انت بتتمناها.
مم.
فما ما تبصلهاش انك بعد مثلا 5 سنين اكون فتحت شركة، فتحت اكاديمية، لا، ممكن اكون بعد 5 سنين بصحتي يعني خلاص.
صح
حلو قوي يعني، ده
صح.
الهدف، ان انا شفت نفسي بعد 5 سنين الحمد لله كويس بصحتي، اهلي كويس، يعني ممكن يعني الرزق متنوع يعني. عشان كده
amazing.
دايما الواحد عيش يومك بيومه، وسيب الباقي بقى على ربنا، بس عيش سعيد يعني،
صح
عيش الحياة سعيد زي ما انت كنا بنتكلم في كلمات يعني حتى انت قلتها كانت كلمات ان انت
صح
حتى يوم ممطر وحيد مش
صح
عارف ايه، حتى
صح
معكش فلوس في جيبك،
صح
عيش حياتك. وهو فعلا اصل هي حياة واحدة.
صح.
فلو قعدنا نفكر كتير فيها، لا اتبسط، معاك فلوس معاكش فلوس اتبسط، عندك هواية نفسك تعملها اعملها، عندك حاجة نفسك تتعلمها اتعلمها. يعني انا مش بس عشان الميوزك، مثلا انا كنت من زمان حابب أوي اتعلم لغة، آه، ابتديت وبتعلم حاجة غريبة يعني، هي روسي بعيد
ما شاء
مفيش
الله.
حد عنده يتكلم. بس دلوقتي خلاص الحمد لله بقيت بعرف اقرا، بعرف اكتب،
ما شاء الله. مع انه ما
بعرف
في
اتكلم
ما في
شوية.
احرف، ما
في
في احرف انجليزيه.
لا
ايه.
مفاهيم هي مختلفة، بس انا من حاجات من زمان كان نفسي اتعلمها.
نايس.
فقلت ليه لا برضو. يعني بقالي حوالي اكتر من يمكن سنة او سنة وشوية مخصص لها كل يوم كده نص ساعة، والحمد لله الوقت لقيت لا خلاص يعني اعرف اقرا، اعرف اكتب، اعرف كده. فدي من متع الحياة، انك
امم
تدور على الحاجات اللي انت بتحبها وتعملها.
ما شاء الله ما شاء الله.
بس
والآن لايف ميكرز حنسمع Fly Me to the Moon by فرانك سيناترا من الفنان الأستاذ محمود لاشين. amazing amazing. بصراحة تشرفنا كل الشرف بوجودك
حبيبي
معنا
ميرسي، انا سعيد
الفنان
بمقابلتك جدا.
محمود لاشين. كيف صناع الحياة، كيف اللايف ميكرز يقدروا يشوفوك ويسمعوا لك ويتابعوك على السوشيال ميديا؟ انت موجود على الانستغرام قلت لي.
موجود على الانستجرام.
ايش الحساب على الانستغرام؟
ميمو لاشين، MEMO
MEMO LA
LASHIN.
SHIN. احنا we'll put that you'll find that link في وسط الفيديو وبرضو في الديسكريبشن تحت. هل انت موجود على اي سوشيال ميديا تانية ولا انستغرام هو
لا
المين؟
هو المين الانستجرام.
اوكي ممتاز.
انا يعني مش خلي بالك عشان بس الناس ما تفتكرش انا مش منتشر يعني فنيا
ما
ولا،
احنا
انا انسان
ما
بسيط
احنا
جدا
ما
يعني.
احنا جبناك
لا
ليه.
ولا خلي بالك والله عمر ما كانت انا ابدا مثلا ما بدورش على الشهرة.
I know.
يعني انا كتير انت بس عشان العلاقه بينا وقلت لي موضوع ان احنا سجلنا، وقلت لي حابب اظهر معاك في اول حلقه عشان
احنا
انا.
البوينت
فهو
حق
انت شفت حتى
الفقرة
قد ايه انت كلمتني عشان اجي، يعني انا مش من خالص مش من الناس اللي هي بتجري
I know
ورا
I know.
شهره
وانت شخص
الله
جدا
يخليك.
جدا متواضع
ميرسي كلك ذوق.
ومهذب، ويعني
شكرا.
شخص يعني معدن واصيل للامانه. الفكره من الفقره هذه دائما حتكون تسليط الضوء على المواهب المحليه الغير معروفه، ليس الهدف بالدرجة الأولى أنه يصير في قاعدة جماهيرية وشهرة وبزنس وشغل. لا، هي الفكرة أنه إحنا نشجع وبكل إيجابية وأخوة ومحبة ندفع بأنه الكل يتعلم حاجة جديدة. الحلقة المقبلة من Make Life Happen يمكن يكون الضيف مثلا بيلقي شعر أو يعني مثلا خطاط أو حاجة ثانية. فبغض النظر إيش هي المهارة، يعني في عوائد نفسية وعاطفية، والواحد بيسترخي وبيرتاح وبيشعر بإيجابية أكثر حول الحياة وحول البني آدمين اللي حوله. وأنت خير دليل على ذلك. أنا من أول مرة تعرفت عليك صراحة يعني ما شاء الله حسيتك كذا مرتاح، وتخلي الناس اللي حولك يشعروا نفس هذا الشعور، نفس الارتياح والاسترخاء. فأنا جدا سعيد إنه تعرفت عليك، وإن شاء الله حنكون أصدقاء طول العمر إن شاء الله. Thank you for your time. جماعتنا وأصحابنا صناع الحياة لايف ميكرز، بليز تابعوا أخونا وصاحبنا محمود لاشين على الانستغرام، ونشوفكم في الحلقة الثانية. So Life Makers, our guest on the podcast today, on the inaugural episode of the podcast, episode 1 of the Make Life Happen podcast, is someone very near and dear to my heart. Maria is a very special someone that I met in Germany during my stay at a language institute. I was there for 8 months, and at the tail end of that stay, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to meet this wonderful angel, one of the most fascinating individuals that I've ever had the pleasure and privilege of coming across. A deep thinker, a philosopher, an artist, a child of the universe in every sense of the world, and in every sense of the word. And today we have a lot of topics to cover. And I want to say that make life happen. Um, make life happen is about certain values that a life maker should embrace. And these include positivity and passion and selflessness and honesty and humility. So these are the five pillars or the five values of a life maker, in my humble definition. And Maria, by all measures, by all accounts, whichever way you slice and dice it, Maria is 100%, 1000% a life maker. And I'm truly honored and I'm blessed to have Maria with us today on the very first episode of the Make Life Happen podcast. Maria, thank you so much. We've gone through so many technical difficulties and scheduling difficulties, and I apologize for the nightmare that I put you through. To make this happen, but I'm glad you were gracious enough and kind enough and patient enough to just bear with us during all these hiccups and hurdles. And really, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you with us on the podcast today.
Thank you very much. For me, the one who should be blessed and who's blessed is me, because you're taking me into account in this amazing project you're willing to start. And for me, it's a tremendous pleasure to be part of this today and to be with you today. So thank you. And thank you for the beautiful presentation. For a second, I thought you were not talking about me.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine if I said something like, "Yeah, and Christina is an awesome person, and we also have this other person, Maria, but she doesn't matter as much." Yeah. No, no, no. This is awesome. This is amazing. I can't wait to get into the podcast. And I suppose the first question that we should be asking is, who are you? Who is Maria? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Who is Maria? Taking into account that Maria could be the things she does. I am 34 years old. I come from Spain, and I
Mm.
studied philology. So I've been always into philology, which is the study of literature and linguistics. And I am also a dancer, if I can say that. So I am what I love. So I love dancing, philosophy, thinking, and being as kind as possible as I can be. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you see any like synergistic kind of interdependencies or cross correlations between dance and philosophy and philology, or do you consider each of these disciplines or arts its own kind of universe, its own domain, completely separate from one another?
no, I think they're all interconnected because philology is the study of languages, and
Mm.
through all
Mm.
its manifestations, just like literature. And dance is another manifestation of language, is the language of the body. Through the language of music, the body decides to move according to the sound and the rhythm. So it's very connected, dance and philology. And philosophy, it's a way of trying to understand things and to question things. And I think it's also very much connected, because if there was no language, there wouldn't be philosophy. So I
Mm.
think the three of them are all my loves and my passions are very much connected, indeed.
Hmm. Do you have a first love or a first passion, or were you always from an early age fascinated in both language and dance, and basically you've always been in one way or another kind of like a deep thinker, scratching beneath the surface and asking the questions of, why are we here, and what consciousness, and what is the purpose of our existence, etc.
Yeah, actually, the three of them have been with me since I was a kid. Dancing, I've been a dancer since I was like 2 years old, and I could stand up by myself. And literature, I've been always telling stories. As soon as I started talking, I started like making up stories. And regarding making questions and asking questions, I began very young as well. I remember with the figure of Santa Claus.
Mm.
When kids, I was 5 years old, the other kids were like super excited about, yeah, tomorrow we're gonna have presents. And I was asking my dad, but what is the route is he gonna make? How is possible that he's gonna be okay if he's living in Finland at this time? How come can he make it to Spain, Portugal, Greece, and Italy? I was like always trying to understand how things worked, and
Mm.
making so many questions just for 5-year-old kids. So my parents always told me you were like a tiny philosopher since you were born, like always trying to understand how the world worked, and not, I didn't find comfort in the typical answers. I was like,
Mm.
I'm satisfied. With a different language, with a kid's language, but I was telling them that I wasn't believing what they were telling me.
Mm. Uh, do you think this is something that you maybe inherited from either your mother or father, or maybe someone else in the family, or are you unique in that sense?
Well, personally, I'm sure that somehow I got something from my parents, but I have to admit that I have been a little bit more rebel and always more questioning things, and asking myself a lot of questions, and not not satisfied with any sort of answer. Like, I'm not gonna say that I'm unique, because I'm sure that there are millions of people like that. But in the family, probably I'm kind of the only one, or the one who's asking more questions, and who's always trying to see the core of things, or trying to, because you're never very close to the truth, because the truth is very relative. So, but at least I try to
Yeah.
get. But
Yeah, there's probably 1,001 definitions of the word truth, and one very simplistic way of looking at it is truth is how you define it, or truth is what you believe. Well, that couldn't possibly be true, right? So yeah, that's very interesting. Mm.
And I was the other day thinking, because I was sure that you were going to ask me something related to who are you? I was asking, like, I began thinking that we normally build our self identity and our ego according to what we have done, what we have, and what we have achieved, But normally,
Mm.
I began thinking, normally when I define myself, but what I have and what I have done, these kind of things lead me normally to frustration somehow, because
Mm.
um, what's going to happen when I don't achieve what I want to be, when I'm not what I want to be? I'm going to
Mm.
be like insecure, full of anxiety. So what I've been learning these past years is like, I am what I feel inside. But normally, even if I don't need to be self-identified all the time with my emotions, because emotions are also transitory and normally they are tricky as well. But
Mm.
what I know nowadays is that I am not what I have, and I am not what I've done. I don't know if I explain.
Mm. Yeah, sort of. You're not gonna allow yourself to be victimized by past, um, let's say, incidences, let's say, in your life that may not have been favorable, and you don't look back at that time as you know, I made a lot of mistakes and I wasn't the best version of myself. Is it that you know my past does not define me, and my future is certainly something for which, you know, I am hopeful, or about which I am hopeful and optimistic. I want to realize and actualize a better tomorrow. However, I think a mistake that we often make is we never like exist in the moment and just count our blessings, and just sort of take a deep breath, and just stop to smell the roses. We're always looking at the cracks in the sidewalk and the weeds in the plants, and the clouds forming in the sky, and oh man, it's probably gonna rain again. Whereas in some other part of the world they may be facing a drought. So yeah, I'm definitely guilty of that myself. I always look back at certain things that have transpired in my own life, 5 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. And we're the same age, so we've been on this earth long enough to have made quite a few mistakes, and it's a very easy trap to fall into. But it's also it's equally important to give yourself a pat on the shoulder every now and then and say, you know what, I'm not the best version of myself yet, but I'm not a bad person. I'm a pretty decent human being.
Yeah. And indeed, what I actually learned it 10 years ago, but sometimes I forget it. I don't know if it has happened to you, but sometimes
Mm.
we spend most of the time or a lot of time in our lives comparing ourselves with other people. Like, he
Oh
has
my
done
God, yeah.
job position, I should be more like, and always like trying to be something we are not. And I was
Yeah.
thinking the other day, related to this, like, life is like a card game, okay? So you're assigned 10 cards, let's say, and it will be a waste of time if you were with those cards, and if you were in the game and you were like, oh, if I had this card, life, my game will be perfect. But come on, you have these cards, and life is gonna pass if you don't play, and the game is gonna
Yeah.
pass. But with life is the same. It's a waste of time when we spend our lives thinking that life will be better if you had like 5 kilos less, weight less, or if you were
Hmm.
blonde, if you had a bigger car, a bigger house, or if you were richer, or if your family was better because maybe your conditions are not that good. At the end, you have to accept and embrace who you are, what are your shadows, what are your lights, who your family is, what is your income, and at the end, because that's what we have. And accepting this, I think it's primordial. And of
Mm.
course, stop comparing yourself with other people because their condition is not your condition. And yeah, that's something that I'm luckily enough that I stopped comparing myself years ago. But I can see myself when I was a teenager, comparing myself with other people. And I still do it. Sometimes
Mm.
maybe I see people who has followed their dance passion, for example, like for real, like I'm not gonna do nothing else. And it's like, I stop and think of their lives like, wow, that must be amazing. And I feel like excuse me, like very frustrated because it's like, oh, I don't
Mm.
have this. I didn't do that. But then
Mm.
there's a point in which I stop and it's like, hey, Maria, this is the life you have. Be grateful. You're blessed. And you have things that other people don't have. So why should you complain about what you don't have? Just focus on what you
Mm.
have
Mm.
and build the best version of yourself.
Do you remember the exact moment? I mean, roughly the exact moment. Was it like how they describe it as an aha moment where you literally had this almost like an epiphany or a revelation, and you're like, I have to stop living my life this way because it's toxic or because it's not conducive towards me feeling better about myself and the universe around me? Or was it a gradual build up over a period of time due to X or Y number of events in your life?
The second option, I mean, it was totally gradual and unconscious as well. One
Mm.
day you change one thing, but it's unconsciously. You feel like you need to change something. You don't really know what it is, but you start like building a different way of acting. And it was
Mm.
definitely unconscious, and it was not something that it came to my mind like, oh, that's the secret to be happy, or this is
Mm.
the formula, in which, no, it's just something that happened gradually. And obviously there were some events that helped and contributed to make me understand a bit more about myself and about my family and about the world and about my inner situation, my psychology. And
Mm.
the older we are, the more possibilities we have to understand ourselves if we are open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that? It's a very kind of funny quote. It's like life is a lesson that you learn when you're through. When you're like 12 years old, 13 years old, your your wisdom IQ is incredibly low. You know nothing. You are nothing. You don't even know. You're not even empowered yet with the tools of introspection, the tools of like in Arabic we say at-ta'ammul. So how do I revisit a situation wherein the outcome was not necessarily favorable, and then how do I draw lessons learned from that interaction? How do I become a better version of myself the next time I find myself in that situation, whether it's with my wife or my kids or my boss or my university colleagues or whomever. And I feel for me as a 35-year-old, I'm a lot more, I'm a lot better positioned to be able to have those conversations with myself and really engage in that exercise of deep introspection um, and yeah, and draw meaningful conclusions from it.
Yeah. And do you think it's also important, the day you're sitting face to face with your shadow, that part that you deny from yourself, that part, that dark part that we all have, and we try to hide when we are younger. When I was 20, I was trying all the time just to show myself as the perfect person that didn't have any sort of defect, and one day you have to sit with yourself in front of the mirror. You see yourself, and it's like, dude, I have this, and I don't like this for myself, but this is what I am, at least at the moment. I might try to change this from me, but maybe this is something that it's there, and I have to deal with it. And the best thing I can do is just embrace it and take it, and put it together with the light, and then
Mhm.
the light you create when you integrate that shadow with your light, it's the best. The Carl Jung spoke a lot about it. He was a disciple of Freud, and he
Who
taught
was
me a
that?
lot about it. Carl Gustav Carl Jung.
Carl Jung,
Yeah,
Jung.
yeah.
Okay. Any particular literature that you would like to recommend that our life makers go through or familiarize themselves with?
He has a book, but I don't know the exact name in English because I have it in Spanish. But it will be, the translation would be something like the Red Book, Jung's
The
Red
red.
Book.
Okay, not red like communism or anything, right?
No, no,
Okay.
no. It's not
Yeah.
about ideology. It's just an invitation to embrace, also not to stop denying, what you are, and to stop accepting even the
Hmm.
worst you have inside. Just the best way to heal is accept yourself, everything. Because if
Hmm.
you keep on denying everything that we don't like from ourselves, that's the way that we are not going to change anything. If you start accepting your mistakes and accepting who you are, and even those parts that, as I said, that you don't like from yourself, you may start a very good path of healing, and you might even change yourself.
True. True. Yeah. And maybe you're not you're not ill, quote unquote, to begin with. Like harping back you mentioned the point about the cards that one is dealt. Now, in theory, like the ace of spades is a stronger card than than the jack of, I don't know what, jack of diamonds or what have you. But the cards that you're dealt is just one half of the equation. The other half is how do you play those cards? How do you position yourself strategically and tactically and intelligently throughout all of the stages in your life to get the best out of those cards. And I've come across certain individuals in my life who, on paper, they have all of the ingredients to a very successful, prosperous life. They're super smart. They come from very wealthy families. They went to top schools, et cetera, et cetera. But they just don't know their own value and their own worth. So they end up. One of the things that I feel we don't do enough of is we don't unplug enough. We don't take breaks from the rustle and bustle of our very busy lives, and we don't reward ourselves with a glass of Chardonnay or, some Sebastian Bach or whatever one likes to listen to, or a stroll by a lake or something. Is that something that you found yourself to do more often in more recent years, Maria?
Yes, definitely. I used to think when I was younger that life was happening outside of me constantly. And, there was a train leaving and I had to be there, And
Mm,
one day I realized, and it was gradual, it was gradually, I began to understand that life was happening also inside of me. And that there was no problem if I was alone. There was no problem in one day, 2 days, 1 week, or even 1 month, just lying down, sitting down, being still, not being like socially alive always, And I think I learned this in India, actually, not only in India, but through reading Indian ancient textbooks. I learned a lot about it, and
mm,
it came to me when I was 20, and when I was 20 it was too early to get a glimpse of what the information was about, but step by step I began understanding that,
mm.
and maybe there were some situations which led me to be alone for a while, and I began enjoying a lot my own company. I was like, wow, I can have. I don't
Absolutely.
need to be constantly with friends. I don't need to be constantly outside. I can be inside, and I can be enjoying uh, my passions. What you said, it can be a Mozart or a Sebastian Bach or whoever you like, or it can be reading, or it can be even not doing anything, just breathing, breathing,
Exactly.
and just contemplating how beautiful nature is, or whatever you have in your surroundings, because maybe you live in a city and you can still be relaxed and with yourself.
Absolutely. One of the things that I would definitely advise anyone who feels like there's a lot of clutter in their brain or in their life, and their cache memory is all maxed out. One solid piece of advice I think I would be able to give is get to know yourself. You could be a really social person, like a social butterfly. You could have a lot of acquaintances and a lot of friends and always be around people. But, that's why I started with who is Maria, or define Maria. You have to know yourself before the world can be introduced to you, and you have to be comfortable in your own skin before you can let anyone in. So if you are genuinely unhappy with yourself when you're just hanging out with yourself, if you find yourself boring, then find out why. If you find yourself annoying, then find out why. If you love yourself and you enjoy your company, then let that be the basis, let that be the rock, let that be the foundation that you branch out from. And when you let people in, always aspire to be authentic and be genuine, and forget about the facade. One of the things that I fear, I fear for the younger generation, because I'm very old, Maria. I'm an old man. I'm an old wise man, and I fear for the younger generation. I fear for the younger generation because I feel in 2020, everything is about the show. Everything is about the facade. We went from Facebook to Instagram to Snapchat to TikTok. You literally have 10 seconds to be sexy and fascinating and intriguing and interesting and amusing, and if you're not able to get those views and get those clicks and get those subs in those 10 seconds, then you have essentially failed as a human being, as a person. And I just think it's so unfortunate that this day and age, that seems to be the correlation or the association. You associate your self worth and your value with your ability to entertain uh, in 10 seconds. Whereas what we are doing right now is we're having a real conversation about real things. And I feel that on the flip side, uh, that art has fallen through the cracks. The art of discourse, the art of sharing our feelings and emotions, um, and just being, just coexisting in a space.
Definitely, I truly agree. And as a future teacher, I'm gonna start teaching next year. I'm very much
Mm.
worried about how my teenagers or the teenagers I will get to meet. They are so worried, as you said, about their appearance, about the way they look. Uh, for example, in Spain, most of the young girls are just worried about their looks, about how sexy they are, how can they improve their sexiness, and how can they be more fierceful or more sexy, like just that singer that just came up with this amazing video clip and things like that. And men also are suffering this, and for me it's very sad because they are victims actually, because I don't think we have to blame teenagers or young people for behaving like this. At the end, it's a matter of education, but even this escapes from the education because maybe your parents gave you a good education, but you're a victim as well of your generation, and the way this generation is communicating is through the immediate things like Instagram story. I'm just gonna upload this Instagram story. I have to be seen as like the most beautiful girl or the most
Yeah.
beautiful boy. I have to see how what I do, what I did, and it's all about how the appearances. It's all
Mm.
about I care a lot about the what other people think about me, and this is a big mistake because at the end, the only one who has to accept you is yourself.
Mm.
Obviously you need some approval from your parents, especially when you're a teenager, because at the end you live with them, and you're still young to understand everything from the world, and you're so vulnerable. A teenager is very vulnerable, is full of frustration and all these hormones going, and you're trying to detach from your parents. All of a sudden you become 12, 13, and you don't identify anymore with your parents. For you, your parents are losers, and you just want to be with your friends constantly,
Yeah.
and to you're looking for your self identity. And the sad thing is that there are several factors that I think that generate this confusion in teenagers. One is education. The way the educational system is created is not created
Hmm.
to the critical thinking, is not created to awake their minds and their curiosity, and I don't think it's created neither for letting them understand and learn for real. It's
Mm.
just based production. You're going to learn things to become a productive member of society in the future.
Mm.
But and then they have all these movies and all these TV series in which you are constantly show the beauty, this beauty pattern that you have to be the in that standard, otherwise you are not worth it.
Mm.
I grew up, I'm 34, and I even grew up, even if we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, I even could feel that when I was 16, a little bit of pressure.
Mm.
um
To dress a certain way
I
and speak a certain way and act a certain way.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So, what I would recommend to all these teenagers who are like confused, and it's just to believe a little bit more in in themselves, to look for the things they are good at, because everyone is good at something. Maybe you're not
Mm.
good at dancing, because maybe it's not, but maybe you're good at drawing and you didn't even know. Or maybe you're good at speaking languages, or maybe you're good at football. It doesn't matter, but you're good at something. So the first thing teenager or every person should do is to stop comparing themselves with other people. Accept your cards, as we coming back to the
Yes.
previous conversation. Accept who you are, accept those cards, and play with them the best game you can have, you know.
Hmm.
Play with them, and start looking for your passions, because there, I'm sure everyone has at least couple things that they like and they can just start doing, you know. And
Hmm.
because otherwise you're gonna be frustrated, and you're gonna, at some point you're gonna be anxious about yourself. Because when I think about all these teenagers with their Instagram, you know, not following their passion, not doing, like, for example, football, dance, playing guitar, whatever it is, and they're just watching the Facebook feeds and seeing how amazing other people's life is, and then you're thinking like, oh, my life is just nothing, you know. My life is not worth it. I don't do anything. I have nothing. I'm not good at anything.
Yeah.
And and I think this kind of education should be also implemented in schools, because
Mm.
someone needs to tell these kids and these teenagers in this case that they are worth something, that they are good at something, and push them, you know, to find what they are good at.
Interesting. Would you agree with like a compound approach? So like one standard deviation is introspection and getting to know yourself, and another a second standard deviation is basically the home, your siblings, your mom, your dad, being in an environment wherein you are encouraged. And you are motivated and you are inspired to be whomever you feel you need to be happy and successful, even if that connotes being different. Kind of if you're a bookworm or a geek, if you're into astrology, if you're into chess, it's not the popular thing, it's not the sexy thing. You're probably not gonna get like 1,000 new followers on your TikTok every week, but it's you're on a journey of self discovery and familiarizing yourself with who you are. And then the third standard deviation would be school. Now, school is a tricky one because obviously there's a huge variance in different parts of the world in how much um, governments are willing and able to invest in education, particularly public education. And they're like, these lofty programs that you're talking about, and these developmental kind of programs and endeavors and initiatives, they're not cheap, man. They cost a lot of money, and we don't have money. We're in the midst of a pandemic right now, and the exchange rate is in the crapper. The unemployment rates are through the roof. Inflation rate, blah 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 blah. So, what would your response to that be? Is there some kind of middle ground? Are there low hanging fruits or quick wins that wouldn't necessarily cost billions and billions of euros to implement and or integrate into school curricula and programs?
Okay, I think there's a cheap way out of this situation, which is
Mm.
um, letting teachers have a better formation, not only letting them know. For example, now I'm attending, in order to become a better teacher, you know, I'm studying
Mm.
how to implement the affective education, you know, affective approach, because education is
Mm.
not only about contents. You know, you have to learn the present simple in English. So let's work for, yeah, this is a part of. But then we have other approaches, how to approach education when it comes to psychoaffective. You need to know how to deal with your emotions, especially when you are like a teenager, like your hormones are on fire and you don't even control yourself because this is something
Yeah.
biological. So I think it's very important that teachers, worldwide teachers, and I know this is like very utopic, this is like an utopia, but still I think that there are ways like teachers could learn a bit more. Like as a teacher, you have to be constantly learning, because how come can you be a teacher if you're not constantly learning?
صح.
Constantly learning, you don't need to learn more about English. For example, in my case, I will be an English teacher. Maybe I don't need to learn more about English. I will need it to I will need to learn English forever, but still, maybe for a teenager, my knowledge is enough. But I need to know how to reach them, what
Mm.
strategies I need to awake the interest of my students. Because, for example, a teacher that began 40 years ago, nowadays he doesn't really, or she doesn't really know how to approach their students, because they are so stimulated, by social media. The society has changed a lot. So
Mhm.
we need to look for different techniques to approach the student and to let them learn in the best way they can learn. And also, for me, it's very important to teach the students in cooperation. I've been learning lately about collaborative learning, which is an
Mm.
approach in which students are forced, not forced, but you know what I mean, to learn together and to work together. So it's focused on teamwork. So if someone fails from the team, the whole team is going to fail. So you have to be focused on your success, but also in the success of your team, because it's all about the collective. And I think
Mm.
this is very important regarding the affective processes, the emotional processes. And I think it obviously cannot be implemented like, if it would be amazing if all the countries had the economical infrastructure to just generate the utopian education. This is obviously not going to happen, at least not in the next years, for what I see and what I feel with this pandemic and the pandemic and the subsequent economical crisis which is going to
Mm.
happen. There are ways I think parents, your mom and your dad can help you. Your teacher should be able to approach the emotions of the student. Obviously, the teacher is not a supreme figure that can control everything. At the end, you have 50 or 55 minutes per day with every class. So you cannot.
Mhm.
There are ways in which, for example, I was reflecting the other day. I had a teacher at school. I was always a very good student, so I had very good relations with my professors. But then I remember this typical rebellious kid that didn't want to learn because maybe he was going through problems at home, or maybe he had some psychological issues. No matter what, I had teachers that they wanted to help and contribute, to this student to get better. But there were other teachers like, no, no, this is like now he's contagious, to the other students, so he should sit in the back. I'm not gonna let him participate. And what I'm seeing in my practice
Mm.
is that you are always going to have very rebellious students, because it's their age where rebellion takes place. But if you let them participate, if you let them know that their voice can be heard, they start cooperating. Maybe they are like rebellious for 3-4 days, but once they see that you are taking them into account, that you are trying to listen to them, and you are trying to hey, let's go, let's come. Yeah. For example, normally teachers tend to ignore the one who's misbehaving. In my case, I
Mm.
would like to be the kind of teacher that he's the one who's misbehaving, he's gonna participate with me. So for example,
Mm.
I'm gonna let this student know that I he matters. he matters for me, and he's gonna participate. So maybe if I need someone, a volunteer, I'm gonna ask him to come. I'm not gonna ask always the best student, the one who's willing, because she's already or he is already willing. I need to approach the students who are not willing to cooperate.
Hmm.
Um, do you feel that teachers in Spain, perhaps even in Europe, are properly trained, incentivized, compensated to shape and mold the future leaders of tomorrow at such an early and impressionable age?
I think somehow, yes, they are, but it's also true that I consider that the age of retirement for a teacher, I think it should be earlier, because now we are having teachers that they are 64 years old working. So I completely disagree with a 64-year-old teacher working. Why? Because
Hmm.
you are not close to the generation you're working with. So
Ah,
obviously,
the gap. Hmm.
it's an economical issue. Obviously, they have no interest in retiring people that early, because once you retire them, it's gonna cost you money to the government, you know.
Hmm.
But
Yes.
the truth is that I think there's a very, very good generation of teachers coming, and there are already a lot of them working, and with no new technical knowledge, which
Hmm.
it's going to facilitate and help and contribute to the education to become a better place. And I really think so. But still, as I totally disagree with. I think the teacher should retire maximum with 55, not only because it's psychologically it's very stressful to be a teacher,
Hmm.
even if you enjoy. At the end you have like 25 students, or 20 up to 25. Now with the pandemic you have only 15 teachers, 15 students, but still psychologically it's very tiring. And also because when you're 55, you're so far away from that generation, so you don't have skills to approach them anymore, you know, unless you are
Hmm.
very much connected to their world. So for example, my dad, it's about to retire, this is his last year, and he was telling me the other day, he's a teacher, he was telling me the other day, he this is the first year he begins to feel very tired about education for the first time in his life. But he told me
Hmm.
because so far away from their understanding of the world. And I was like, Dad, I totally understand that, because I even feel myself very far away from them. I cannot imagine you. My dad doesn't even have Facebook, you know, he doesn't have
Yeah.
Facebook. He doesn't really know how these kids are interacting, you know. Even if he's always been a good teacher and he gets along with the students, he's like, he assumes that he's tired already. And he was telling
Hmm.
me, I know this is the right time. So in June, inshallah, he is going to
Inshallah.
retire. Yeah.
Oh wow. Big party. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, what I wanted to ask you a question about. Yes, in Spain, is there a minimum number of years of contribution to the workforce in order to be eligible for full retirement benefits? Like, for example, 25 years or 30 years? Or... Wow, that's quite long. So I'm sorry. Yeah. Knowing knowing you, it wouldn't change anything. If you had and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong. If you had all the money in the world, if you had trillions upon trillions, it wouldn't change a thing. I mean, if anything, it would. I mean, you would do more, but at your core, I don't believe. Which is a nice seg, right there. Do you think that money? Do you think that people are motivated by money, or do you think that money is so powerful that it could actually chemically change a person, change the fiber of a person, the person's very DNA?
I think both somehow. I mean, there are people who doesn't really care about money, even if they don't have it. I know people that they have money and they don't really care, and I know people that they don't have and they really care about it because maybe they need it. And I know people who has a lot of money and maybe they didn't have previously, and they began acting differently, completely differently, because their economical position now it's way much better, and they began behaving like not in the best way, let's say. For me, in my
Mm.
case, I feel blessed for what I have. I mean, I don't come from a millionaire family. I come from a stable middle class family, and I never really cared. But maybe because I never really had to work hard to get it. I just,
Mm.
I've been working since I was 18 years old, not with contract, except for 2 years, and those 2 years were very hard for me. And then I began to know the value of money. I began
Mm.
to like, wow, all this salary for all these hours worked. But I don't really know. What I think it's that we care about a lot about money, but I can see why. Because everything we do is money, everything, or social life, or everything you may need in life cost money. The very basic things like water, electricity,
Mm.
internet, everything is money. And even when we come to think about our social life, when you meet your friends, you meet them with on a cafe, you go to the cinema, you travel. So for mostly everything we do, we need money. Luckily, but obviously there are a lot of things that we have to find out that we don't need money. We don't need money
Mm.
to be with friends having a walk. At least it's free. You can have a walk for free. You can meditate for free. But we are money, it's a sort of giant that follows us, and we have to please and to be pleasant because we need money. And
Yeah. In Arabic, we say barbar, and barbar means like a monster or like a gremlin. It's always this dark cloud that's hovering over you, and you're just more often than not you're going from paycheck to paycheck, and you're thinking about your next the next payment on your car lease, or you have to renew uh, your the lease on your apartment that you're renting out, or um, it's just it's an easy trap to fall into, and to just never really separate yourself from your need for financial stability and security. And what ends up happening is you become 30 and 40 and 50, and you never really end up pursuing the thing that you've always wanted to pursue, the thing that you were always most passionate about, because maybe you were fearful that it wasn't the most, you know, financially stable decision you could make.
definitely, indeed, that reminds me, I wasn't brave enough, but actually I have reconciled with that part nowadays. But um I think that when we met, you knew I was on the dance path, and all I wanted was dancing and teaching dance. And all this pandemic situation made me realize, that I wanted a more stable economy. I wanted to own a house and in the mountain, and things that I maybe couldn't do as a teacher. I mean, as a dance teacher. So in that
Mm.
sense, I wasn't that brave, but I have to admit that somehow I just changed my relationship with dance, which doesn't mean that
Mm.
I stopped dancing, but I accept that I have also other passions, which are as I said previously, interdependent. So for me,
Yeah.
teaching at secondary school, it's amazing. Writing as well, and I think that I have reconciled with that. Even if I assume that for money I changed somehow my path, not in the bad sense, but being aware that I wanted to live in a comfortable position, and
Mm.
that with dance I was going to struggle constantly with economical issues, and yeah, somehow something like that. But I think it's when you become more mature. I would have never imagined myself as a teacher, like as a high school teacher, like I can see myself nowadays, and I'm very proud of the decision I made.
Mm.
And as well, I think I was born for this, and that I can, even if I am a high school teacher, since I work only during the morning, so I have a lot of plenty free time to enjoy my other passions like drama, writing, dance, and so
But I would have to disagree with you when you said you weren't brave enough. Um, in fact, I think it was very brave of you and very mature of you to realize that there are certain steps that you have to take in order to achieve that desired level of financial. You okay? Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fine. In order to achieve that desired level of financial independence that you would need in order to be able to pursue dance and writing and perhaps the other avenues that you may be more passionate about, but that not necessarily they don't necessarily yield uh, the financial returns that you require in order to be stable and secure. So it's not that you have foregone dance. It's just that you had to make a decision um, right now, and after a certain point in time, you will have accrued enough income. You will have reached a certain level of experience and maybe even gotten better offers from different academic institutions, moved up the ladder, quote unquote. Then you can definitely go back.
yeah, totally right. And now I assume this is my path, and I'm very proud of myself. I have to admit that
Mm.
when I made this decision, it was painful.
Mm.
I was full of doubts. I wasn't very sure. I was even angry, with not only with myself, but even with my parents, even if they never pushed me to take this decision. But since I knew this was what they wanted for me, I was in my inner side, I was like very, oh, I'm doing at the end what they want. But then one day I realized this is what I want, and
Mm.
forced me to make this decision. And now I'm happy, I'm satisfied, and I can see myself. For example, once we finish this conversation, I'm gonna go dancing. I do it every day, and everything can be you can do everything.
صح.
You just
صح.
need to the right time, and
All of the pieces of the puzzle somehow, some way, they fit together. You just have to figure out the optimal configuration. Like this Make Life Happen podcast. I mean, incredibly difficult, incredibly challenging. I wasn't really willing or able to quit my job to pursue this full time, but this is something that's been on my radar for over 10 years, like easily 10 years. I was 24, 25. I was like, man, I need to get in on this podcasting action. This looks cool. I love having conversations with cool people just like you. And it's no less rewarding part time than it would have been full time, because the alternative would have been not doing it at all, and I would have been just as frustrated and just as upset with myself. And I'm like, damn, man, I wish I would just buy a camera or download an app or do whatever I need to do to get this podcast up and running. Um, to what extent was this decision motivated by the COVID-19 pandemic?
By the way, I want to say something. You have also the voice for this podcast. I always told you, a gentle reminder. I always told you when we met in Germany that you had a radio voice. I don't know if you remember that, but I just wanted
I do.
to remind you. Well,
God bless.
regarding your question, it was a process. I mean, actually, it all began last year. I was in the dance conservatory, dancing flamenco, the last year. And one day I realized, I have a problem with my feet. My toes are awful. Apart from that, the way they're like this, like grass. Okay, so I was having some trouble with the flamenco shoes. Not at the beginning, but when I was dancing somehow 5 6 hours per day. So
Per day.
after, yeah,
Oh
so
my.
after days dancing, and I was going to the dance conservatory from Monday to Friday. So on Fridays normally I couldn't go because I had wounds in my toes. I had a lot of pain, so I had to stay at home. So one Friday night I remember being at home and realizing, man, I don't know, this is my future. Following this path is so uncertain. I feel so stressed, and I feel always so stressed about the money and about how I'm gonna get more money, how it's gonna, and I'm not even enjoying my dance. Dance had just become something that was about money.
Mm.
Anymore, and but then I kept on dancing, but I began a master's degree on creative writing, which, by the way, I am about to publish a book, but that's another story. And the thing,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, but that's another story. But the thing is that when
Amazing.
this COVID thing started in March, because in February we didn't even know in Spain it was going to happen here. So when it began in March, whew, I realized, man, look at this. Now I have no money. I mean, I was lucky enough. My parents are always helping me, so it was okay. But then I began seeing all my friends that they couldn't get help. All my artist friends, they were suffering a lot. I mean, this pandemic, took a problem to the table, and then you could see like the artists are people don't need artists anymore, even if they do, because our art is very much needed in this crazy world. But
صح.
all of a sudden, the economy didn't care about the artist, and they didn't care about art. And I could see my friends not starving, but having a lot of difficulties, to pay all the bills and to do anything. So I realized in that point that I needed to come back to the stage in which I was enjoying dance for real, when I was free because I was dancing because I wanted, not because I wanted to earn 1,000, 2,000 euros.
Mm.
But which, by the way, in Spain, at least if you are a common dancer, I mean, if even if you are good unless you are very, very well known, and there are like 10 people very well known, you won't earn more than 1,000. And you can live in Spain with 1,000 euros, yes, but not in the way I want to live. So
Mm.
I considered what my options were, and that's where education came. I was like, okay, I studied a degree that I can apply for education, and if I do this, I can enjoy this part. I can contribute in with philosophy and the teaching of English, but also implement my beliefs. Not my beliefs, like I don't want students to think like me, but I want to plant a seed in every student, with critical thinking, with
Mm.
a different version of the world they are exposed to, like from social media, from television and video clips, movies. And I want to let them know that the world used to be different, and the world could be a different place. They don't need to be, as we were saying before, you don't need to be recognized, or you don't have to be accepted or admired because of you just need to be yourself and accept yourself, because no one's going to be spend the rest of your life but you're going to be with yourself forever. So start building self-respect, self-love, and then the rest will come.
Yeah. Those are beautiful words, and it's funny. I recently downloaded TikTok, and I went down the TikTok rabbit hole, like I would say 3 4 hours a day on TikTok, and it's funny because they have these TikTok challenges, they call them, or trends. Like, for example, go up to your dad and say, or your mom, and say, "I like you cut, G," and then smack them on the back of the head. Have you seen that? Or it's like yeah, that's what basically TikTok is a microcosm. TikTok is a microcosm for the standardization, or the like assembly line approach to our youth, sort of getting their names out there. So one person does the "I like you cut, G," and he smacks his dad or his brother or whatever on the back of the head, and then suddenly everyone's doing the "I like you cut, G" challenge, right? And then there's another one. There's another guy who his whole shtick is how many whole kiwis can I eat in 60 seconds? Because that's the max duration of a TikTok at 60 seconds. So he's literally sitting there with a bowl of whole kiwis in front of him, and one after the other, he's chewing it and he's swallowing it, and then that becomes the new trend, and people try to. So they are challenging one another, but they're doing it in exactly the same way. And I say that TikTok is a microcosm for life, because those TikTok accounts that really break through, and they have like millions and millions and millions of subscribers, or followers, are the TikToks that are actually unique. Like, there's one that I absolutely love. You should get on TikTok, by the way. It's awesome. There's one where there's this guy who was wrongfully accused of a crime in Florida, and he was sentenced to prison for 13 years, wrongfully accused, and he was acquitted. Towards the end of his sentence, and his whole TikTok account is, "This is what I went through, and this is what I learned." One of the things that I found so incredibly fascinating was he learned sign language in 7 days. Yeah, because he saw this guy talking and doing these signs, and he thought that he was talking to him, but he was actually talking to the guy behind him. And what was he saying to the guy behind him? He was saying, "We're gonna kill this guy." So he was like, I learned, like incidentally, like fortuitously, that there was a hit out on me. So I had to learn sign language to save my life. So, and life is like that too. If people stop trying so damn hard to be different, and they just focused on the uniqueness within, then they would be perceived as such. You know what I mean? But if everyone is trying to swallow, 9 kiwis in a minute, or slap people left and right and say, I like you cut, G," then somehow we're all the same, and you get that kind of assembly line. But it's still fun. I still enjoy TikTok, every now and then. Now, let's talk about your dad. Obviously, you're a daddy's girl. You love your dad very much. Um, we spoke about COVID. I'm sorry? Yeah. Yeah, you're the princess regardless, I think. Um, but what's it called? To what extent? Now, we spoke about COVID-19, and we spoke about that transition from dance to teaching. To what extent was this is a two-part question. First part, to what extent was that decision motivated by wanting to follow in your father's footsteps? That's the first half of the question. Second half of the question, how elated, how proud was your father of you when he came to know of this decision?
Well, I gotta tell you that my dad, when I was younger, when I was doing my degree, he was quite happy because he thought I would be a teacher. But then by that time, I was telling him no, dad. And it took him a while, even if he has never imposed me anything. And he has given me the freedom to be able to choose what I want. I have to admit that he was a little bit afraid of what my future would be like being an artist, just an artist. Like, I'm gonna live from art, I'm gonna live from drama. In that sense, he was a little bit afraid, but he always believed in me, and he always gave me the resources and the money to study, to learn, and to improve. But still, I feel, even if he never told me, and he told me when I told him already, like, I have chosen to become a teacher. By then, he told me, I feel proud of you because you took the right decision. Because now I know you're gonna have the income every month you need. You're gonna have a social position in which you're gonna be comfortable. You're gonna have free time to enjoy, and you're gonna have your work until the day you retire. And but when I didn't take this decision, he never told me anything. He was like, sometimes he was like letting me like, this is the artist life is very risky, but he was not trying to impose, he was just letting me flow with my ideas. But I know he feels so proud these days, and I know that he's telling me, I'm doing the practicum where he works at, even if he's a history teacher, so I'm not in his department, but we are like very close every day. And he is very proud of me and very proud about the methodologies I want to apply it in the classroom. And I can feel his smile and how his chest has grown, because his little girl is becoming a teacher. Yes. And for
That's
me,
amazing.
That's amazing.
it's an amazing example of how a good person should be. So
Th-
That,
That's awesome. That's awesome. طيب, now I'm gonna challenge you, Maria, because I was actually asked this question. I was actually asked this question by a younger female friend. I think she was like in her early 20s or something. And she was like, "You're an older guy and you have a fairly good idea of what you want to do with your life or what you're passionate about." I engaged in that exercise of, introspection and all that stuff. I really thought long and hard about who I am and what makes me happy and what my hobbies and interests are, and I got nothing. I got nothing. I swear to God, I have no idea what I'm interested in. I have no idea what I could possibly, potentially be passionate about one day. So, what would your advice be to that person?
that's very, very, very difficult question. But if I was in front of her, um, I will quickly maybe do a checklist or on things that might could apply to her hobbies or things that she could find that she likes. Because as I said previously, everyone has it's good at something, at least one thing, but sometimes it takes so long to, like, I remember Miles Davis used to say it takes a long while to play like yourself, to play music like yourself. So it takes a long while to
mm,
be who you are. And it's a very tough question. I don't know if I'm able and capable to give you a proper answer.
I think you have answered it actually. I think you've answered it. I think it's just a matter of being patient with yourself. And in Arabic, we say, in the Egyptian dialect, we say حط رجلك اليسار قدام رجلك اليمين. Put your left foot in front of your right foot, and then put your right foot in front of your left foot, and just take it one step at a time. And it's not a cliche. No one that has ever reached a certain milestone or a mountain crest, just was parachuted down, or there's no escalator, there's no elevator. You have to literally take it one step at a time until you get to where you're going. Even if you don't know where you're going, but you have some kind of belief, you have faith that you're headed in the right direction. And even if you're not, your intention is pure, and most of the time, I feel intention is, in Arabic we say an-niyya. Intention is it's so easy to overlook intention. Like if you're a good person, like you're not quite sure if this is the job for you, if this is the career for you, if this girl or this man is, the love of your life, but your intention is pure. Your intention is to be happy. Your intention is to be a positive influence in the world. And somehow it all works out in the end as a result of that.
Yeah, definitely. So I hope that nowadays that friend of yours, she found her path and her passions, because I think once you find your passions, life flows, and obviously you are not exempt from suffering. Suffering is going to be there, but you're going to have ways out of your suffering through your passions.
Mm.
Like example for you, this podcast might be a way out of your suffering, because we are in a world in which we are into suffering a lot of times and during many many hours of our lives, and we need ways out. Like I have dance and drama and writing, you have your passions, and so we all need a passion, even if we don't do from this passion or work, because maybe your income won't come from your passion, but at least your passion will save you from depression, from anxiety, from suffering a bit more, than needed. So
Mm. And if you were faced with a situation, or if someone was faced with a situation wherein, conversely to the first scenario, that person knew what they were passionate about. Let's say snowboarding, or yodeling, or playing the banjo, or what have you, but they had zero support, like literally zero support from their nucleus, their mother, father, siblings, and just a lot of negativity and toxicity and um, defeatist mentality, and just not the right energy. What would your advice be to that person? How should that person like push through and persevere and just continue to believe in what they're passionate about?
I will, and excuse, I'm gonna say sorry for all the people against my answer, but I will tell that person to follow. So you don't have, for example, the money to buy a skateboard, for example. Okay, work, work. I'm sure you can find a work. Maybe you are 16 and you cannot still find that, but maybe you have a friend who has a skate and you can share it. Or maybe you are 18, so you can already find a job and your family is not giving you support. They're telling you that this is a waste of time, but they are not inside of you. They don't really know what you need. Only you know what you need, and you should
Mm-hmm.
fight for it. And maybe you might need to be I don't know, um, I don't know, a waiter or a waitress during a summer, so that you can buy the skateboard, and in your free time, whenever your family is not in front of you, do that, because that's what you're passionate about. And obviously before that, you should try to negotiate with your family and explain them why this is important for you. But there will be people that for sure they are not that lucky to have that kind of parents who are understanding and won't give the support. So in that case, the option would be do it for yourself, but do it. Do it, because maybe one day you are 40 and you will regret not following your dream just because someone told you that this was not important, and that was the view of that person, not yours. So I think everyone should follow its inner passions, and if the kid or the teenager is very, or the young people, this young person is that sure about it, she
Mm-hmm.
should follow it, even if there are a lot of challenges and no one is supporting, because one day you will find out, if you learn how to master it, or maybe you don't need to be a master, but if you're good at it, your family, I'm sure that they will be like, I'm proud of you. I didn't know this was so important for you. I would have supported you, you know? So
Mm.
My advice is following always your dreams. Even if this sounds like utopian, obviously, maybe your dream is being a skater and you cannot live from skater. Yeah, but if this is your passion, you can spend all your free time doing what you
Mm-hmm.
love. And maybe you need to work as a banker, economist, or I don't know, a waiter, or washing cars. No matter what you have to do to combine it with your passion, but always
Yeah.
follow your, yeah.
Find the way to make it work.
Exactly. That would be the summarize. Yeah, the summary will be that.
Cool, cool. So we've spoken a lot about Papa Louise, the history professor. Let us dedicate some time to talk about the Queen. Yes, yes, Mama Manena. Mama Manena. How important is your mother? To what extent is she a focal point? Is she a lever? Is she an anchor in your life? What does your mother mean to you?
My mom means everything to me, and from here I have learned a lot of things in life. Like, for example, when I was younger, I couldn't be assertive, and my mom taught me how to fight for justice, how to deal with people I didn't know, and whenever they were doing something I disagreed, how to fight for, not fight, but how to tell them in a nice way how to things should be done, or how I expected things to be done. From her I learned how to be social, because my dad is a little bit more shy, and my mom is very easygoing. She has been always like a lion, like a lioness, and very liberating the situations, and very easygoing. And most important, I learned from her big heart, because she's been always supporting people and sacrificing herself, even not for the family, but even for friends or people who need it. And she has always been. She used to be a psychologist until she retired, and she was devoted to her job, to the teenagers she was attending, and for me, she's an example of how life should be lived as a woman.
Hmm. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And uh, and when exactly did her health begin to were those issues first uh, faced, let's say? What was the genesis of that?
This was 6 years ago. I remember the period I was in India, so no one told me anything. But she began noticing that she had a lot of headaches, and that things were falling from her hands, and there was no reason, but all of a sudden the cell phone was falling or stuff like that.
Mm,
So she went to the several neurological doctors, and after several scans and tests, they came up with the awful news that she had an aneurysm.
mm,
So they detected that in her brain, and this was very dangerous. So after consulting several neurosurgeons, they decided that the best thing to avoid a sudden death, or a sudden break of this aneurysm, the best thing would be having surgery.
mm.
So surgery took place this November, was 5 years ago. The
Okay.
surgery took. So the first surgery went well, but unluckily 5 hours, sorry, 24 hours later, the hospital called us that she had a massive brain stroke. So she fought between life and death for 1 week. She was in induced coma. So
One
my dad and
week.
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So
Mm,
every time we could enter to see her, she was in intensive care unit, But not in the normal one, but in the one where people are just living because of a machine. They will be
Yeah.
dead. There was no machine. So I don't know the name in English. I don't even know the name in Spanish. So the thing
Mm.
is that every time we were leaving the hospital, we didn't know if we will see her anymore, and she was unconscious. So it was a very dramatic and trauma situation. And when this happened, my whole world vanished. I mean, everything changed. But in such difficult and sad circumstances, the human being has this ability to fight. You don't even know where the strength is coming from, but you are like, in these very hard moments, you are not even aware of what's really going on. I remember the first 3 4 months, because this happened to her. After the coma, she was awake, and I noticed she was a little bit different, but I was so shocked that obviously I couldn't put all this information and put it in order. My brain was so untidy, and everything was so, and I was having diazepam like very often, because I couldn't stand the situation for what it was. So I needed escape, a way out of all this mess that was going on in my life. So for a while, I struggled a lot, and I forgot my own feelings, like sadness, despair, hopelessness, anger. I was like putting them aside unconsciously. And I have to admit that I went through the 5 stages of a grief, because even if my mom was alive, obviously she had changed, either psychologically but physically as well. I mean, but psychologically, I mean, this was the hardest point, because physically at the end it's like, okay, I'm gonna be there for her. She cannot be independent anymore, but I can help her, because this brain stroke left her with half of the body in paralysis. Okay,
Mm.
even if nowadays she recovered the left leg, but she doesn't recover. She didn't recover the arm, so she has a 76% of dependency. She needs always a third person helping her for
Mm.
eating, taking a shower. I mean, she can eat, but she cannot cook.
Mm.
She can half dress, but she needs help for the other side. So, but this for me was not that bad. For me, the problem was assuming that my mom, the way I had known her, had changed psychologically. Even if she has not issues, and if you met her right now, you would feel that you're talking to a normal person with no, she has no issues. Like, apparently she has no issues and she's a complete normal person. But the people who knew her previously, we can notice the change. Obviously, as a daughter that I spent a lot of time with her, I could notice that she had changed. So the 5 stages of my grief, as all the griefs, denial, the first one. Um, this this was my way of defending myself from this madness. And I was so in shock that I couldn't really notice what was going on, and I was denying, like, no, no, this didn't happen to us. Then the second stage, and the worst one, well, not the worst one, but anger.
Mm.
When I was emotionally devastated, so I wasn't ready, and I was so vulnerable, and all of a sudden this had happened to us, and I was wishing. One day I saw myself wishing, and sorry for this, but I wanted the doctor who did the surgery to my mind. I wanted he to die, or I
Mm.
wanted this to happen to his family.
Mm.
And all my anger and all my violence was focused on the doctor, and
Mm.
the people that might have caused that this happened to my mom. But and then I was feeling guilty as well. And then the third stage, I call it the if only phase. It's if only I had been better daughter, if only I had blah blah blah. And this stage is not helping, because you are feeling guilty, and you're feeling that you could have done things differently, and this is your fault, and obviously this doesn't help. And then
Mm.
after 3 awful stages, you fall in a huge depression. When you assume what's going on, and it's like, wow, so this is what happening. And So you have mood swings, you are, you feel anxious, you feel guilty, you deny. For example, I feel that when I went to Germany and I met you, even I was in some sort of stage of depression. I was not depressed, like I wasn't diagnosed, but I was in this stage of feeling sad and denying. Because when I was in depression, I was denying as well. For me, Germany was a way out, like from the situation at home. And from the cell phone, everything seemed like when I was talking with my family on the cell phone, it was like, wow, everything's perfect at home. I mean, everything's normal. Then I was coming back at home and I was already face to face with the reality. And I was like, wow, wow. And I was already as well shocked and suffering again. But then one day you realize that you are accepting it. This is the fifth stage, which is acceptance. For me, it took me 4 years to accept and to talk about this topic without a pain in my chest or with tear in my eye. And actually, the day I realized I had got over this was not this February to 2020, but 2019. I was living in Sevilla, and one day I realized I was explaining this situation to a friend, and I realized that I didn't feel pain there, and I was like, okay, I'm getting better, and I love and accept my mom for who she is now, and I'm so proud of her. And I don't feel sorry anymore. I mean, of course, I feel sorry for her, but she's constantly teaching me that success can either be in a wheelchair or can be with two arms or either with one. And for me, my mom, she's still my best friend. She's my best support together with my dad. And for me, even if I admit that these last 4 years, well, yeah, these last 5 years were difficult, this last year I can be more thankful and grateful for what we have. And I don't want to think anymore about what could have been if she didn't have the surgery, or I am so thankful for what we have now. And I'm pleased that she had the surgery, because maybe if she didn't have the surgery, things she could be dead, or she could be even in a worse condition. So
Of course, of course. And there's no like manual, is there? There's no like how-to guide or tutorial, because the every experience for every person is different, and there's no timeline either. So for example, for you it was 4 years. For someone else, they never really go through the five stages of grief, or I don't know, they just they just stay stuck in one of those stages or phases. Mostly denial, I think, because that's the one where you go to your happy place and you just exist in your version of reality, wherein everything is okay and everything is hunky dory, and you do that to essentially survive. It goes back to Darwinism somehow. But but for you, I mean, was there any particular, was there any like conscious effort to transition from one stage to the next, or did you just like surrender yourself to the process, and whenever you were ready to move on, you moved on to the next stage and the stage after that?
yeah, it was the second option. I was moving stage from stage. And even if the more I wanted to get better, the less I could get better. So I had to live the process, and I had to give myself a space to live in the process and embrace the process and accept it. I remember when I was in the angry stage, I didn't want to be like that. I was feeling guilty for being angry, and the more guilty I was feeling, the more angry I was. And I wanted to stop being angry, but I couldn't, so I had to be angry. And when I was depressed, if I didn't want to feel depressed, there were days I didn't want to, honestly, I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to lie in bed and to fall asleep until the next morning. And I remember there were days in which I could see the daylight, and I was like, "Oh, again, it's day again." I wanted it to just wanted an eternal night, you know.
Yeah.
And what I know is that I had to push myself to do things. I remember Germany was a decision that my parents insisted a lot in
Mm,
me to do that because they wanted me to be the same young girl, which was not the whole day worried about what mom was going through, what I could do better. You know, they were aware that I was young and that I have to live. And I'm very thankful that they helped me in that sense, because I think they were a big part. They were a big part of my process, and they contributed for me to heal, even if I wasn't healed enough until I feel 1 year. Yeah, a little bit more. It's gonna be 2 years already in February, but
mm,
it was a big part of it. You know, I needed to leave leave the house and live. You know, even if
mm,
I was worried about, but I cannot live worried about, because all we have is the present, as we said before, right? We know nothing
mm.
about the future, so
صح. And after having gone through this ordeal and incredibly challenging, period in your life, what is the number one piece of advice that you would give any life maker, any person who may be going through a similar ordeal? What's the number one thing that you would tell them to do, and what's the number one thing that you would tell them to not do?
okay. The first thing I would like to say is that it doesn't matter what stage of your life, or if you lost someone you loved, um, you will never get over it, but you will learn how to live with it. And one day you will realize it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that you don't have feelings, but one day you will realize that that pain in your chest is gone. And you will realize that you learned while you're suffering. Thanks to the suffering, you learn how to live. And that suffering prepared you for life, because life is not about happiness only. It's not about smiles. It's not about pleasure. It's about suffering. And luckily, we only learn through suffering. I never heard someone learning from smiling all the time. You know,
Mhm.
one of my favorite writers, Dostoevsky, Fyodor Dostoevsky. He's a Russian writer. I don't remember how the sentence goes, but he said something like, "I never met a deep man that didn't suffer."
Mm.
He what said that only through a deep suffering we can really reach a deep thought and a deep knowledge about life. And so, what could I advise them and people who is suffering all over the world? First, accept. Don't try to avoid or to deny your suffering. Accept it. Leave it. Leave that emotion. It will leave because it's transitory. All the emotions are transitory. One day, emotions are like a roller coaster. So one day you are like super excited and super happy and proud about who you are, and one day you are sinking and you feel you have no control, and you feel that your emotions would be like that forever. But this would one day you will be again up, and things will change definitely.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely, yes, no doubt about it. And in I feel it's one of the most difficult and delicate balances or points of equilibrium to reach in one's life. It's that balance between existing in the present while not losing sight of the future. Because some people say, I'm just living, I'm just going day by day, I'm just living my life to the best I can right here, right now. And sometimes what that means is they are poor planners, or they're not forward thinking. They're not thinking about buying a house or getting married or investing in their kids' college funds, or they're just sort of, I wake up every morning, I wash my face and brush my teeth. I go to work. I grab a beer, whatever, and then I Netflix and chill, and that's my life. I don't stress about the future because I have no control over it anyway. Um, there's definitely a certain balance that has to be achieved. I think I feel for me sometimes I focus far too much on the future. I focus far too much on tomorrow, and I forget about today. So I'm never really like in the moment because I'm always thinking of, oh, I gotta do this tomorrow. I gotta get my lease sorted out. I've gotta pack my things. I've gotta pick someone up from the airport, etc. But it's definitely a difficult equilibrium to strike. That's one thing I would say about anxiety. And the other thing that I would say is, um, it seems like this day and age, lots of people are being persecuted. They're being perceived as soft, or weak, like mentally weak. If you were to say to someone who's over 7 years old or over 8 years old, I don't feel too good, man. I feel like I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety. I'm feeling really anxious, or I'm a little depressed, or what have you. It's like, man, stop being such a girl. Just tough it up. Be a man. When I was your age, you hear that all the time. When I was your age. So definitely, I think an important message is it's okay to feel anxious about your career, about your relationship status, about your financial position, about all these things. It's okay, but it's not okay for this anxiety to cripple you, because at the end of the day, you have to move forward with your life. And you have to, like, it's okay, like, acknowledge the anxiety, and then figure out a way to feel better about it. Save more money, invest more money, um, pursue a master's degree, whatever it is for you.
Yes, I truly feel this is important to even to accept ourselves when we are weak, because this society tends to, as you said, to ignore and to reject these kind of feelings. You cannot feel weak. Of course you can. I mean, we all feel weak, and this should be exposed. Showing weakness, I think it's a sign of strength. I mean, people who are brave enough to show, this is how I'm feeling, this is what it's happening to me now, and I'm broken. I think it's very brave, once you stop hiding the way you're feeling. But this society tends to, as I said, ignore and reject and not accept, definitely not accept weaknesses and vulnerability. And I think it's very important, and I, in my case, when I let myself be seen crying, be seen suffering, I became stronger. Actually, I spent a lot of time in my life not willing to let people know, except my parents, obviously, but people from the outside, even my friends. I didn't want to be seen weak. I didn't want, because I really felt it was a signal of being less and being not worth, or being, vulnerable. But one day I realized that when I really accepted help, because I was looking for it, like I told a friend or maybe someone from outside of my family, like, look, this is how I'm feeling. I'm not feeling well. I need help. This is what's happening to me. The more I spoke about how I was feeling, the better I was getting, the better I felt. Actually, it was quite the opposite. I thought that by speaking, if I spoke about it, I was going to sink even more. And actually, it was like emerging, and and somehow my mood began to change, um, by speaking about the emotions that I was having. I was healing. So my, even if you didn't ask this time, but my advice would be for all these people listening to us who are dealing with anxiety or dealing with depression, dealing with very hard times. It's my first advice, because I have gone through this, would be not to lock yourself in your shell. I know you might need time to be alone. This is very much needed, but you also need help. You are not, you also, I'm not talking about a psychologist. It might be a good friend, it might be your mom, it might be your neighbor with whom you feel comfortable, but you need to speak loud how you're feeling, because once you start speaking about it, you're going to heal. It won't take one day, it might take 2 months, it might take 1 year, it doesn't matter. But once you put your feelings into words, you are on the path of healing. You are on the path of recovering from the situation that made you feel like suffocated and made you feel the worst person in life and made you feel depressed. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think it's important to acknowledge that not all sources of anxiety are equal. So, for example, if someone loses his mom and dad in a car crash, um, that's definitely anxiety and depression inducing, and also having an algebra final for a 14-year-old could be incredibly, anxiety and depression inducing. However, they're anxiety and depression inducing in completely different ways. Yet, how that translates in the metaphysical sense, in the neurological sense, in the psychological sense, I mean, you could lose your ability to eat, to drink, to sleep, to speak. It's like you're literally on pause, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So one of the comments that I think it's important to raise a flag at is when someone says, "Man, you're stressing, you're anxious about an algebra exam." Like, seriously, don't undermine any person's source of anxiety, because you don't know what's happening internally in their organs and their fibers and their beings. And just be compassionate, um, and just listen to them. When they're older, they're gonna realize that it was probably silly of them to be anxious about a test, um, for like their driver's license, maybe, or an algebra exam, or confessing to a crush that they like them, or what have you. But at the time, in 1994 or whatever, or when you were 14 years old, or what have you, that was literally the biggest deal of your life. So it's not so much that a 7-year-old or 80-year-old is tougher than a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. It's that they've gone it's the sum. There's a sequence, and then it's like the sigma thing, and experience after experience after experience after experience. You're the same person, chemically and physically and every other way, but you're like, oh, hold on, I've been in this situation before, and suddenly it's not so bad. But also having someone to talk to, also having, yeah. And these days, like, what do you think? Do you think people still talk? Do you think people still have conversations?
From my generation, they do. From our, I think from our generation, not everyone, but if you're lucky enough to find the right place and the right people, I talk. I talk a lot about with my friends about my emotions, their emotions, about philosophy, the world, how we feel the world is. But normally, yeah, I feel that um, we are as a whole society, we are becoming a little bit more superficial. We are not talking about the main topics that move our existence, like emotions and impressions, and we're talking about more what we did last weekend, what we will do next weekend. But I think there's people that still talks. I feel that this is something that it's not becoming usual. I mean, not that common anymore these days, but I want to stay positive and feel that you can still talk with people. I can see sometimes this summer, I remember I was during a trip. I met people that they were completely different from me. I was in France, and at the beginning, I had the impression, no, this you cannot talk with these people. These people is just talking about stupid things. But then I began introducing different topics, and I realized it was just me. I mean, once I introduced this topic, they were obviously I was not talking about what did Plato say in. I was not talking about philosophy, but maybe philosophy can
Yeah.
be just about how do you feel existence. This conversation we are having. There's people with whom you can still have it. You know, I feel
Mm.
that. Obviously, it would be amazing if it could be with everyone, but I feel that there's still people with whom you can really sit and talk and, yeah, get naked, take out the mask and we are trying to wear and all the pretensions and just sit down like two human beings trying to live the best way they can and just being honest about they are vulnerable, they are also happy and excited about things, but they are also anxious. And yeah, I wish
Mm.
there was more people, but there is.
So you are cautiously optimistic. That's awesome. صح. طيب, what are your I know that this is a very cheesy question, and I apologize in advance for asking such a cheesy question, but I must. I would be remiss, if I hadn't asked this question. Do you believe in New Year's resolutions, and do you have any of your own?
Well, you mean like if I believe in like in 31st of December, I write down in a paper things I would like to change and things I would like to improve? You mean that?
Yeah, I mean, do you agree with the premise of having resolutions to begin with? And do you have any like goals of your own, being personal goals or career goals, that you would like to achieve in 2021?
Well, if I'm honest, I used to blame myself when I was younger because I never felt capable of changing my life from 31st December to 1st January. Then one day I realized it didn't matter. New Year's Eve, I could change whenever I want. It could be 23rd of May. And in that sense, no, I never have like 2021 goals. Of course, I know I want to end up publishing the book, but that's the only thing that. But normally my goals, what I do, is work on them. I realized that it didn't matter if I wrote down in the paper and that there's no a powerful energy which is going to work better during that night and that following day, and that it can I can make it happen the 13th of August, or I can make it happen, I don't know, the 10th of May. So no, I'm not a believer in that. I believe that you have to set your goals whenever it is and start applying them. You don't need to wait until December, or
Mm.
1st of January. So it's not my case. I know people who does it. Like I don't know. I will quit smoking the 31st. When I wake up the 1st of January, I won't be a smoker. Okay, go ahead. But you could have done it like last month. Mm,
Yeah.
there are no like magical energies like that night that would, I don't know. I don't believe in that. Indeed,
Yeah, it's a
it's not.
placebo effect, I think.
Yeah, it's not even a solstice, because the solstice was yesterday. Maybe it could be a little bit more powerful, but 31st of December, at least in Spain, it's nothing special. I mean, there's a huge party going on, but the
Yeah, a huge party with masks on, right?
yeah, well, yeah. You know what I'm gonna do that night? I'm gonna sleep early. The last 2 or 3 New Year's Eve, I've been like sleeping even.
Wow. But that's actually fun too. It's fun to sleep when it's 2020 and wake up when it's 2021. There's something magical and charming about that as well. Cool. Well, I can say this was a most fascinating and most interesting inaugural podcast with our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Maria Amoros, my near and dear friend. Uh, and I hope that this was as rewarding and as fun for you as it was for all of us. Can't thank you enough for your time and for your patience and for your just honesty and always wearing your heart on your sleeve, which is one of the things I love about you the most. And you're officially a life maker now. So welcome to the club, welcome to the family, and we'll be linking all of Maria's social media in the description box below. So please give Maria a follow, and Maria's a wonderful, amazing, fantastic person, and you will all be quite fortunate for her to be a part of your life, as I am fortunate that she is a part of mine.
I am so thankful, I have to say, because for me it's been a pleasure to be here, to be part of my first interview ever, actually. So I was very new to this situation, and I feel very glad that I made it because, first of all, because you, as since we met, you always made me feel very comfortable, and this has been the case as well. And as well, you have always been very deep in your conversations, and this has been the case as well. And for me, it has been, I feel blessed for having a person like you in my life, and I really hope and expect that when this situation is over, we can meet. And I
Absolutely.
hope that we're be very, very successful with this project, which I would love to be part of or contribute a bit more, because I
You are.
feel your your will and your desire to help and to expand consciousness. It's one of the best things you have, apart from your voice, I remind you. And I'm sure that people are going to love this space, this safe space that you are creating, in which people are able to show that they are weak, to show that they are broke, to show that they have hopes, and maybe they lost it and they are lost and assume, okay, I'm lost, but I'm gonna find my way, I'm gonna find my light, and I'm gonna get back on track again. It might take time, but I think that this space, it's very much needed, and I'm very thankful that it was created by you.
It was created by us.
But it was your idea, and and I told you, when you told me about you did this project, I told you, I have to admit that I'm not surprised, because you, when we met in Germany, you were always trying to make to create a comfortable atmosphere for everyone. You were always worried about how people were feeling, and you really wanted to contribute and make a change in the world, in the sense that you really want to help, and you have a golden heart. And your people listening to this should feel blessed, as we should feel blessed, because they are listening to us. And this exchange of energy and good hopes and good dreams, it's very beautiful.
God bless you, Maria. God bless your mom and dad. God bless anyone and everyone near and dear to your heart. And we will definitely have you back on the podcast again and again and again.
Thank you, my friend, and thank you everyone listening to this conversation.
Make life happen.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Because when you smile, the whole world feels
a little more bright.